Good evening. Thank you all for joining us tonight. At this time, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and so as you're able to stand, please join me. Ready? Begin. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Individuals wishing to address the City Council are requested to complete a speaker card and deliver it to the City Clerk staff prior to the item being heard by the City Council. Please observe a 3-minute limit for communications, and once called upon to speak, please state your name and city of residence for the record. So we have 2 revisions to the agenda. Item number 22, the presentation was updated, and item number 23, the presentation was updated. Tonight, we have 3 proclamations, recognitions, and presentations. The first is a presentation from the California and Nevada Section American Water Works Association. Then we have a recognition tonight, and then a presentation on McKinley grade separation. So at this time, I would like to invite Tim Worley and Sue Mosberg to the podium to provide the presentation. Did I say that right? Mosberg? Mossberg, sorry. Right over there, sir.
So thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm Sue Mossberg. I'm the Executive Director of the California-Nevada section of the American Water Works Association, also known as AWWA. And AWWA is very well known by everybody in the water industry. You may not be as familiar with us, so just a few sentences about who we are and what we do. The association is a professional society that dates back to 1881. It's always been a leader in virtually every issue around safe drinking water and well-managed water utilities. Our California-Nevada section was organized in 1920 and is over 100 years old. We're proud and we represent members of over 5,000 water workers in the industry. They're professionals who serve and our membership includes nearly 500 water utilities, including Corona's Utilities Department. We're the leading provider of continuing education, certification, and advocacy for our members. And I'm here tonight with Dr. Tim Worley, who preceded me as Executive Director of our California-Nevada section, and who now works as a policy consultant to support our advocacy efforts. Tim's going to provide a few words about the details that lead us to recognizing you tonight.
Thank you, Sue, and good evening, Mayor and Council members. As Sue mentioned, I have the privilege to work with the Water Utility Council, which is the committee of California-Nevada section of AWWA that follows water policy issues on the state and the federal level. Federally, we work with the staff in Washington, D.C. of AWWA on federal legislation and regulations. I'm pleased to note that Tom Moody here has been a member of our Water Utility Council for the past 2 years, and we certainly appreciate his contributions. Tonight, we wanted to pay special tribute to some extra efforts that your utilities department has been involved in, and thank you, the city, and them publicly. First, the state of California is in the process of making new regulations called Making Water Conservation a California Way of Life. I believe we all support water efficiency, and the city certainly promotes conservation. You also recycle water, which is extremely helpful. But in reviewing the regulations that first came out from the State Water Resources Control Board, we found many problems. I won't recite all of the concerns here, but the water community turned out in force to call for some changes to the proposed regulations. The public hearing on this matter just a few weeks ago, held by the Water Board, lasted for over 12 hours, and I think you can appreciate that those long meetings are hard to endure. But there through the whole thing was your Water Utilities Director, Tom Moody. Adding the city's perspective was certainly important and helpful to push for a more sensible approach, which we are starting to see some movement on. I also wanted to mention another critical issue of national importance and your role in it, which is the issue of PFAS. I know certainly you've heard of PFAS, the huge family of chemical compounds that are sometimes called forever chemicals. Some of these chemicals are found in the sources of drinking water and also in the wastewater that comes into your treatment plants. Without any fault of your own, this water often contains these chemicals. And now we see that the Environmental Protection Agency is proposing to list some of these chemicals as hazardous substances under the Superfund law, or CERCLA. That gives us great concern throughout the country because the Superfund law opens up so much liability for anyone who touches the chemicals of concern. So it's unfair and patently wrong for passive receivers such as the City of Corona or other water and wastewater utilities who receive these chemicals to be subjected to potential liability and litigation from third parties simply trying to reduce their own financial exposure. We in AWWA have been prioritizing this issue for many months now, and we did set up a meeting with the staff of Senator Padilla. He sits on the Environmental and Public Works Committee in the Senate, and we met with his staff to impress upon them the importance of this issue. And joining us in that meeting, virtual meeting, was Katie Hockett, and the city's perspective on this issue was, again, extremely important. So on behalf of the California American Water Works Association, that's why we're here. And Sue?
So with that in mind and the appreciation for the staff participating in these statewide and national conversations, and on behalf of myself, Tim, our Water Utility Council, and our 5,000 members, I'm pleased to present our Water Advocate Certificate to the City of Corona. We appreciate everything that you and your Utilities Department is doing, led by Tom Moody and Katie Hackett. Thank you.
Okay. So on November 4th, 2023, the bright lights of Corona were dimmed at the passing of Shailene Cortez. Shay was a lifelong Corona resident, a loving wife to Mike, an awesome mom to Jeremy and Jesse, and an absolute treasure to the city of Corona. When I decided to run for city council, Shay, gosh, there's something in my eye. Shay was one of the first people to reach out to me and tell me we needed to meet. She didn't ask, she told me. Her love for her city was obvious and her knowledge was deep. As a past board member of the Corona Historical Preservation Society, she spoke from authority about our shared Corona history. With me, Shay did not hold back her expectations. In fact, she didn't hold back anything, and I loved her for it. I would always count on her honest feedback if I needed a sounding board, and frequently she would text me after a meeting to give me her feedback, or even text me while on the dais to tell me her thoughts. For those of us that love Shay, there will be a celebration of life on December 2nd at the Corona Elks Lodge from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. After just a brutal battle with cancer, which she fought like hell, Shay would want everyone to carry on. And I wanted to let everyone here know that she was not only special to me, but she was special to the city of Corona. And I already miss her so much. Thank you.
Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards for the recognition and presentation.
We'll go ahead and invite Josh Cosper and Juliana Zielinski to come up and get going with that presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am Juliana Zaleski. With me is Josh Cosper from Mark Thomas and Ashley Saragosa from the Economic Development Department to provide a brief update on the McKinley grade separation project. We will begin with a brief project overview. Next, we'll go over construction activities with a review of the off-site steel fabrication, current staging, and detour routes along the corridor. We'll get a look ahead of future construction activity. We'll go over right-of-way. The city's Economic Development Department will highlight business support program efforts. And finally, we'll review our public outreach efforts thus far. So this is what we're all working towards, the project configuration in the after condition. McKinley Street will be a 4-lane facility with 2 lanes in each direction. Magnolia Avenue is off to the left side of the slide, off the slide. The 91 is on the top right, and Sampson runs down the middle. The future road, Paseo Los Arcos, is featured there in the center next to the future Steel Tide Network Arch Bridge that will be crossing the railroad tracks, the flood control channel, and Sampson Avenue. So what have we built over the last couple of months? It starts with the 15-inch city sewer line. Here's a couple pictures of the trench work that is required to install this vitrified clay pipe. And you think 15 inches and it doesn't sound too bad, but this pipe weighs about 100 to 150 pounds per foot. We've also made some good headway on the installation of the 30-inch potable water transmission main. Here's some pretty good pictures of that trench work necessary to install that water main. Much of the pipe in this area north of Sampson is about 10 feet deep. There on the bottom is a picture of that 30-inch ductile iron pipe. That pipe is actually about 150 to 200 pounds per foot. We have not tied it in just yet, but when we do so, we'll provide ample notice and public outreach for that effort. Last, with regards to underground utilities, we are nearly complete with the storm drain lateral construction north of Sampson Avenue. Here's a good picture of a new lateral and the bottom of a drainage inlet structure. Another big challenge when planning utility work on a grade separation is the significant elevation difference between the existing grade and the future grade. Here's an example of exactly that, where the top of the drainage inlet is significantly higher than the existing grade. Storm drains and underground utilities are built long before the fill and the wall construction, and so there's a lot of necessary planning that goes along with this work. So what are some other challenges with utilities on a project like this? Special care must be taken when working around existing utilities. This is a good picture taken earlier on in the project where we use a vacuum truck to remove dirt from around an existing communication line, as digging around it would have damaged it or could possibly damage it. Another challenge in working in deep trenches such as this is needing to operate in confined spaces. So this is a good picture of a trench box used for shoring some of our utility trenches, which keeps them from caving in and keeps our work areas safe. So what about the bridge and the wall construction? We're currently working to get the bent caps at the top of the columns ready to eventually make the structural connections to the steel bridge. This is a picture of some of that prep work. The retaining walls along the eastbound 91 off-ramp have been constructed. The only items remaining on that eastbound off-ramp are the construction of the crash barriers, which is currently ongoing, and the concrete pavement completion. Similarly, walls along the west side of McKinley between the Sampson Avenue and the SR 91 have been constructed. Here are the walls at the Carl's Jr. driveway, and this has already been backfilled up to almost grade. And this here is a good picture of the construction of the wall next to the Quickies car wash. This area here has also been backfilled almost to top of grade. I'm going to turn it over to Josh Cosper with Mark Thomas to go over the remaining construction activities and look ahead.
Thank you, Juliana. So now the boring stuff, right? The steel. Well, you know, some people find it boring. Actually, this is my favorite part. So I do want to say that all the steel components are actually fabricated up north, where we'll talk a little bit about it, but that milestone is now complete. So everything steel on the bridge, done. They've even worked through, when I talk about the progressive assembly, that's all done. So you're going to see some good pictures here. So what you're looking here on the right, that's one of the floor diaphragms. This one here is along the bottom. It's basically part of the support floor diaphragm itself, like it's on the outside looking in. So there's a lot of steel along the floor itself. So kind of one of the things I've talked about and I just mentioned is this progressive fit up. So what is that? That's actually where they take in these big bays as you see there, and they actually fit everything together under controlled settings and make sure it all fits. Gets it like one, you know, it's like putting all the Legos together out of the Lego box and then putting them back in the Lego box to send down here. That's kind of basically what this is. And this is some of the pictures that you see of that process happening as they're putting on the arch ribs off to the left and the tie girders off to the right there. Another picture here of some of the tie girders and more of the support diaphragm there. Continuously progressive fit up. And so here is the blue. You can see the blue. They have been painted. More of the support or the floor diaphragms actually having been painted themselves as well. And here's a picture as they're getting ready to be shipped. So we won't talk about colors anymore. Anyhow, I just wanted to show that things are moving along nicely with the steel. And so next we're waiting for the on-site mobilization. The false work. I have to go back though. Let me announce one thing here. These pictures I added in after they were posted on the agenda just because they were fresh off of the press. So this came early this week and I just wanted to make sure we had some of these pictures so you could see that these are getting ready to be shipped. So the false work, we've had a series of closures. We were actually done as of last night with the closures. There was a lot of roadway grinding and prep work to make the clearances and so you can see some of that's happened over the last month where they've had to grind some of the road down and kind of work into that. Basically what you're starting to see here is they're putting the false work in, which is basically all the woodwork and everything else. It's going to temporarily support the bridge as we're pouring a lot of the concrete members and getting ready for bridge placement. So you can see some of the lift-alls and mobile cranes and other means and methods. Another shot here on the south side. And then, one of the critical things is just making sure that we'll have a temporary vertical clearance of 14 feet. That's pretty typical with Caltrans for temporary clearance. And so we're just signing it, making sure everybody knows and it's good and advertised. So here's kind of as we were working through the day. And then here, this is another picture I just added as of early this week from a recent drone shot. You could see a lot of the false work in place, getting ready to pour the bent caps and other concrete members necessary to support the bridge. Traffic control. So this is a picture looking over Magnolia Avenue to the north. You could still see on the south side, if you're going northbound, we're keeping it open as long as we can for the left, the through, and the right turn. As you get a little bit further to the north, you'll see that we're pushing traffic on the outside lanes as we get ready for some of the WMWD effluent line that should be constructed over the next month and a half or so. So this is a picture looking over basically that WMWD construction zone area, and you can see the railroad and Sampson and the freeway to the top side of the screen, so it's all looking north. Basically Traffic is pushed on the outsides, as I was talking about, south of Sampson, north of Sampson. You could see it on the east side of the road where a lot of that retaining wall work that Juliana was talking about is nearly done with construction. And that's a lot of where our major utility work was just recently constructed as well. This is looking over Sampson Avenue to the west. And so you can see where the traffic's pushed on the south side as we're working through a lot of what I just talked about. And, you know, one of the things we've been trying to maintain throughout construction is good, safe, temporary pedestrian access routes. This is a big walking corridor, so you can kind of see some of that with the K-rails down the middle of at the intersection. So this is looking at the 91, specifically the off-ramp, the eastbound off-ramp, looking kind of westerly. So we're nearly at a point where we're going to start to open this up and get kind of more capacity. We're expecting that in the next couple of weeks. And so, you know, just kind of bear with it a little bit longer. But we have a lot of the work in that area done. We're just waiting for the concrete work and some of the other improvements to finish off. So here's another picture of it. You can kind of see the queuing. So we have added a lot of signage and other features to try to minimize it. It has gotten better. But we're hoping once we open this up that we're not having anywhere near this through construction for the foreseeable future. And then that's some of the signage I was just talking about. So, I've covered this slide ad nauseum for the last 6 months. I'll kind of blow through it, but, some of the things that we've done early on is setting up the storyboard maps on the city's website and making sure as construction's changing, those are up and running. But we've made it a point to have a lot of the changeable message signs up and down. We have like a daily set of chats and inspections between all of the team, making sure that if something goes down or something's temporarily down, it's posted and it's tried to be cured within that day. Sometimes signs go out or batteries go out or whatever. And so we're trying to keep that actively going. Here's some of those changeable messaging signs. I just wish that they showed up better on pictures. That's not what it looks like. But unfortunately, I can only do so much with technology. So we make it an active campaign just to make sure people know to avoid as much as they can and what the detour routes are. For a while, you've heard this speech before, but we've got the no trucks, and that'll maintain until we get basically traffic up over the bridge. Hopefully, sometime early to mid next year. And so we've got it signed off. We're actively monitoring that. We're trying to keep that campaign going as well. We've met with a lot of the businesses. We provide notifications quite often to the surrounding communities as well. They're posted on the website through all the social media as well. And so we're trying to keep it as transparent as possible as we make changes. And here's some of the flyers that I'm talking about specifically that we've posted on detour routes. I think these went to the businesses north of the 91. So what do we have on the look ahead? Well, more and more retaining walls. I have a fever, and the only cure is more retaining walls, right? No, seriously, those are going to be some of the big items. We have walls 1 and 6, which are going to be the big walls. A lot of 1 is being done now near the Carl's Jr. That's on the north side, big U shape. 6 is on the south side, so we expect that early part of next year to really be built. You're going to see lots of temporary retaining walls go up now that we're in the process, and some are already out there. But you'll see these kind of wire mesh type walls, and that will allow us to fill this lightweight cellular concrete as we're putting it in and get it ready. And once that cures and we get the bridge in place, now you'll have an area for traffic to go on elevated while we're working in the other fill zone. By the way, these pictures along the south, I've said it before, but these are actually the Hamner Bridge. We might actually be surpassing the Hamner Bridge in terms of construction, but I don't know. But point being is, long story short on that one, these are some pictures of similar walls out there just so you get an idea of them. So the bridge move, sometime late first quarter of next year, we'll have all the on-site fabrication happening between now. So you'll start to see a bridge show up where the yard was previously there, where kind of the northeast corner of Sampson and McKinley. So you're going to see big low boys and those package things coming out, you know, lots and lots and filling that site up. And as soon as that's done, we'll start to get into the actual assembly of the bridge on site. And like I said, you'll see a bridge one day on site. But what's going to be neat about it is you've got these SPMUs, self-propelled modular transports, or SPMTs, transports, which you can kind of see in the lower right-hand corner there. They're like little mini lift-alls. And this is a similar type bridge in the Detroit area that was done much smaller than ours. But you can see how they basically pick the bridge up, and you'll see it over probably a 2-weekend period of where one weekend we'll get it in the zone, the next weekend we'll set it in. But they basically are like little mini tanks that can lift it up and kind of move it around, and then cranes will come in and drop it in. And so the idea is they'll move them. I would love to say it's really fast, but it's probably inches per hour. So when we get to that point and we have the big bridge move party, it probably needs to be in one of those fast motion videos. So here's a nice picture of it being moved onto that bridge project that I was just talking about. And lastly, continuous roadway and underground utility work. Yeah, I think WMWD is the final underground stuff, but there's still a lot of roadway work to be done on this. So right away, I think the only one good sign is one more business settled between now and the last time I gave this speech. So kind of the remaining properties that we're near settlement on are 3. Businesses, 5, but we have a handful of meetings between now and the end of the year, hoping to resolve a lot more of those. So we've been going through and exchanging numbers and doing everything else that you typically do now, and they open their books and both sides. And so we're kind of excited to see where that number can hopefully reduce significantly going into the early part of next year. And again, to quote Mayor Daddario, done. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Ashley to talk about the economic development.
Not just yet. I have a question for you.
Oh, yes.
So a couple of things. Is there any way that we can please prioritize that freeway off-ramp before Thanksgiving? Shopping is going to start and the backup is getting pretty crazy.
We'll look into it. I think we're getting really close to doing that. So I'll talk to the team tomorrow and see where we're at specifically, but we'll get it. We're pushing as hard as we can. We're just waiting for the concrete and some of the other items to cure.
And you guys are doing a great job of proactively sending out, like almost weekly text updates and the website. So I really appreciate the communication. The signs are doing a good job. So you guys are doing great there. I know it's a construction site, but can we do everything in our power also to try and keep the roads, the ones that the roads that the cars are on, free of debris?
Yeah.
I've received a couple of complaints about the impact of the construction on people's vehicles.
Yeah, it's an active
Yes.
campaign on our part, and we send sweepers out. We do other components, and so we'll continue to try to improve that to minimize any kind of that effort. We've had the same complaints, and so we challenge the team to try to make sure that happens. It's just
Yeah, it's
to-
construction.
Yep.
But I can't stress enough that freeway exit
Yep.
in the Thanksgiving and shopping season.
Message received.
Thank
It's
you.
been a challenge that we've been trying to push through, and so I'll sit down with the team tomorrow and see what we can do to try to push it out. We're really close. That's all I can say. I don't have an exact date
Okay.
yet, so working that out.
Thank you.
Yep, very good though. Any other questions? Excellent. Well, thank you all.
So good evening, Council. As mentioned, I'm here to provide an update from Economic Development Department on the efforts as it pertains specifically in the McKinley area. So to date, we've connected with 78 businesses. This has been through phone calls, in-person visits, emails, having those one-on-one conversations just continuously throughout this process, hearing whatever concerns they have, how we can best address them. To date, we've completed 8 business spotlights. Some of those are featured in the photos you see before you. This is really an opportunity. It goes into our newsletter, and it goes out to over 13,000 subscribers. So this is a great way to get their information out there. In addition, we'll talk in the next slide, but there's additional services that we provide, such as our social media outlets and whatnot. But just want to highlight briefly, that's what we've done to date. Those 8 businesses were those that responded after we did outreach multiple times in order to engage them. In addition, we featured one of the vendors for our previous Community Conversations event. Again, trying to show the support, embracing the McKinley area, getting their names out there for the community. So I really want to highlight how we've been supporting the businesses and how we will continue to support them. The first is through the newsletter I previously mentioned. We utilize that newsletter to get information out, making sure we have special segments for McKinley. So that's what we'll do, things like putting the website where the detours are available, again, encouraging individuals. We actually will often drive the sites as well to make sure we have an understanding of what's going on. So when people call in, when we want to make sure, again, we're able to promote them, really gather the community and be there supporting their McKinley businesses. We also have social media spotlights through Instagram and making sure that we're able to, again, highlight those businesses, show how they're a great place to visit, and again, making that effort to go out there because we understand, again, with the construction, what it is to engage in the business community there.
Hey, Ashley, really quick.
Yes.
Do we go back and check with the businesses to see how well these programs are working for them?
We do reconnect. I wouldn't say we have an exact metric, but as far as conversations that happen after they have that initial one, we continue to reach out to them. So we have continuous conversation. So whether it is them expressing that they've had an increase, or for example, the vendor with Hispanic Heritage Month, they were able to see that because they had a lot of people who got to taste the delicious food firsthand. But unfortunately, I don't have an exact metric as far as businesses seeing that shift. What I can look at is how many times those newsletters are opened. I don't have that number in front of me, but we do have the metrics out of MailChimp as far as how much activity that's getting. And then on social media, how many people see those posts.
I mean, I'd be curious to see of all these things that we're doing, which ones are the most effective in seeing an impact at those businesses. I mean,
Absolutely.
it'd be great that we're measuring how well people are opening. I'm curious on whether it's driving people there.
Absolutely. We also have a different platform called Placer. So what we can do as well, put in a request to see if there's been any upticks after we've done this initial promotion. So we can look at the data sources that we utilize in-house for other things and try to get that information to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Wonderful. In addition, we also offer workforce support through subsidized training opportunities, whether that's through the county or through ourselves, through Live Work Corona, again, providing a job board. So if there are opportunities to continue to support their workforce needs, we want to make sure we can address those. Finally, we also have exciting news. We have small business grants that are coming to the community. We do want to stress that this is not a McKinley-specific grant. However, they are going to be available to all Corona-based businesses. We already began outreach, including targeted emails and phone calls, and we're going through the list of McKinley businesses so that they're aware that this is coming live starting November 27th. We're also going to have an online portal where additional information can be found, which is bit.ly/Corona Business Grants. And for those that are interested, we also have flyers in the lobby near the information desk, again, getting that information out there so that people can become informed before they go live. We also want to highlight that we also are working with the county, so they have the Business Assistance Now program and the Riverside County Thrive program. Those are programs in which they're able to offer guidance, counseling, making sure that there's any grants that come up that pertains to that business type, they're then able to connect with them. So we are utilizing our own resources in-house, and of course, and apologies, it says in the next few months, it should say it's launching November 27th, I just realized that. But with that being said, when it comes to the resources and opportunities, we want to make sure we're connecting them with our partners. So if it's not something in-house that we can do, we want to make sure that we can connect them to the right person. We've connected them also to different types of funding streams that have come out, whether it's due to other programs. We want to make sure, again, that they have some someone they talk to, someone to connect with, and as best as we can, connect them to support. So with that, I'd like to pass it along to Juliana, who's going to discuss public outreach.
So in terms of public outreach, we've continued to conduct numerous in-person and virtual meetings with the public, including most recently an in-person meeting in September on the 25th. The next meeting is going to be early next year, not exactly sure what date that will be, but we will put it out in notices. We'll also continue implementing the text program as Councilmember Casillas mentioned. We have over 480 people subscribing to it. If you'd like to join the text program, all you need to do is text McKinley to 844-518-1409 to receive those updates. And we'll continue sending out public broadcasts and outreach notices through the city's social media on a bi-monthly basis, updating look-aheads and achievements. We'll continue actively monitoring the project hotline and email. We'll continue with updates to the interactive web-based map showing anticipated traffic detours and lane closures. The interactive map is posted on the city's website and also found on mckinleyupdates.com. And lastly, we'll continue with routine aerial drone footage, time lapses, and other photography throughout the construction of the project to share with the public. And we'll continue coordinating with the 91 projects and 15 projects that are nearby. So this concludes our presentation. We'll open it up to any additional questions you may have.
Do any questions from my colleagues? No? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public for the presentation?
Mayor, I don't have a speaker card for the presentation, but I do have a speaker card for agenda item 5, the recognition.
Please.
Good evening. I wanted to offer my condolences to you, Tony. I know how important Shailene was to you. I don't want to pretend like I knew her really well. I knew her a little bit. She was a tough lady. She was very formidable. And in fact, the other day I was on Facebook and a post popped up under her name and it had the celebration of life. And my first thought was, God dang, that sounds like a Shailene thing to do. I thought she had posted her own celebration of life because she was a badass. You know, that's what I thought. I had to scroll down to find out that she had passed, and then that hurt even worse. You know, I saw her a few months ago, and it wasn't like she talked about it or anything. It was just this is the way it goes. She kind of checked herself out of the treatment thing and went and lived her life and went to Japan and hung out with her family and lived her life because that's how she was. She's a tough lady, and I want to say I could hear how much, you know, as little as I knew her, it hurts, and you knew her better than I did, so I know it's got to hurt. So I just want to let you know, I want to pass on my condolences.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the meeting minutes. The City Council meeting of November 1st, 2023. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public for the meeting minutes?
Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards for the meeting minutes.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Ooh, got the second. Okay, please vote. Okay, that item passes 5-0. Moving on to our consent calendar, all items listed on consent are considered to be routine matters, status reports, or documents covering previous city council action. The items listed on the consent calendar may be enacted in one motion with the concurrence of city council or a council member, or any person in attendance may request that an item be removed for further consideration. Would my colleagues like to pull any items for discussion? No. Okay. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public?
Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards for the consent calendar.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Please vote. Okay, moving on to communications from the public. This portion of the agenda is intended for general public comment on items within the council's jurisdiction that are not listed elsewhere on the agenda. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on these items. Please observe a 3-minute limit for comments, and once called upon to speak, Please state your name and city of residence for the record. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public?
Yes, Mayor, we have 3 speaker cards for communication from the public.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Magistrates, Chief. I want to give you guys the good news. I got to court, and the judge is going to let me roll you guys into the lawsuit, against organizations that, are responsible for child molestation and stuff like that. So we're all going to court on the 15th of February. I'll be I'll be serving every one of you guys. I figure we all might as well go because I've been telling you about all the stuff you guys have been doing to my family and how you've been taking away my civil rights, my religious rights, my human rights. And you guys have just been letting it happen as if that's a cool thing. But then, this guy here, the chief, allows child molesters to live in my house with my grandchildren, and I tell him about it, and he doesn't think that there's anything that he ought to do about it. And I tell you guys about it, and you don't do nothing either. But anyway, so that's why we're putting together the Cannabis for Christ World Science Firefall Festival. You know what I mean? It's invitational here where, we're inviting people to defend their faith. Protestant means protest. Because they used to be protesting against the Catholic Church because the Pope was like the Antichrist, is what the whole Protestant movement was set on. But anyway, now it's like they say, if you lie down with the Antichrist, he says it's going to make you lie down in a bed, and those who commit fornication with it will be judged. Well, that's you guys, you know what I mean? And so anyway, we're doing this Firefall Festival, okay, prophetic challenge. It's a little pre-party for Christ's return, you know what I mean, where we can practice making straight the way of the Lord, and we're going to come up with a theory of everything. I've got it all down, you know what I mean? We're going to defend our faith, and prove the fact that it's better to have in a church people that drink wine and smoke a little weed to God than it is to have child molesters, okay? And that the state needs to freaking stop being a respecter of churches that do this kind of stuff. In Australia, it was like Hillsong. They've been hiding child molesters for 40, 50 years. And the state would just let them do it while the prime minister was preaching in the church and they got all these strong connections. Well, I guess these guys go to church at Harvest, so they're not going to help get rid of these child molesters at Harvest, and they're cool with New Beginnings having child molesters. And so anyway, listen, we don't have to fight no more. You guys, I'm only going after you for like $4,200,000, okay? No, $420,000 from you guys. If you give me $2,400 and say you're sorry, I'll freaking, in the next week, I'll let you guys all out of it, okay? But the state, the city owes me $2,400,000 until we go to $240 million when we go to court. So anyway.
Okay. Was there any other speakers? Good evening.
My name is Emma Morales. I'm a resident of Corona, and I'm going to speak about an inconvenient truth as evidenced by my shirt. I'm going to make mention of some indisputable facts that we all know. They're widely available. But I'm going to start by speaking about universal values that we all share, and that is that God created humans, but he cannot, with all his power, force humans to love. and that we as humans recognize that we can have our heart's desires without depriving the other of their blessing. Now, there are people in this chamber, in this floor, in this room, in Congress, in the Senate, in the White House, that have amassed great fortunes in the business of weapons manufacturing. And who those weapons point to is not something that keeps them up at night. So I'm here to ask, or to rather say, if I haven't put you to sleep already, why this chamber would listen to a nobody, a no-name like me? Could it be that the writers of the Constitution foresaw something like this, where our leaders would be drunk with power, privilege, prejudice, willful disregard for the life of others and the collective benefit of others? These are the facts. The United States provides $3.8 billion in military aid to Israel every year, making Israel the largest cumulative recipient of foreign assistance by the United States since World War II. Further, Biden is seeking additional $106 billion of taxpayer money to bankroll Israel's brutal regime, ethnic cleansing, and border militarization. Those are the facts, indisputable. Who's going to pay for that? Or do we even have to pay for it? Just kick the can down the road? I'll close with a quote from the book, Searching for God Knows What. And it goes like this: I have a feeling of hopelessness at the death of truth, as this whispering weakling, frail, spineless, timid in the corner, a wallflower having no say in global conversation. And this is my personal favorite quote from Abraham Lincoln. To those who deny freedom to others, they deserve it not for themselves, and under a just God can no longer retain it. Over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fuller, I'm a resident in town. This is my annual Thanksgiving message. There were 4 members of my family on the Mayflower. Edward and Ann Fuller are my 11 times great-grandparents. Edward's brother Samuel was a company's doctor, and they had their son Samuel, also named Samuel, who was about 12 years old at the time. And if you ever had the chance to go to Plymouth, Massachusetts, and you can go a little short distance, maybe a mile or 2 inland from the harbor, you can get to a hill, and on top of that hill is a tall granite monument. It's called the National Monument to the Forefathers. Mr. Speak is raising his head over there. And it's dedicated to the honor and the memory of all those passengers who are on the Mayflower. And my family name is carved into the granite of the monument. I didn't have anything to do with it, but it's sort of a little nice thing to know about. So anyway, so those are some of my families, and this is a copy of the Mayflower Compact, which was their governing document that they signed before getting off the boat. And you can see I've underlined a couple of the names there: Edward Fuller and Samuel Fuller, my ancestors who actually signed the Mayflower Compact, which is seen as the first of a governing document of this nation. And there is some misconception that the Pilgrims came here. They were not the Puritans, by the way. That was a different group. The Pilgrims came here to establish a Christian nation. I would submit that nothing could be further from the truth. They risked everything they had to get as far away as possible as they could from a Christian nation that was putting them in jail and sending them into exile in Holland because their Christian beliefs did not line up with the beliefs of the Christian nation. So they came here specifically to get away from that. And you can see in the second paragraph of the Mayflower Compact, they have decided to set up themselves as a civil body politic. not a religious government, a civil government of just and equal laws, justice and equality. And those concepts work their way through the Constitution and are eventually cemented into the fabric of this nation with the 14th Amendment, with its due process clause and equal protection clause. Am I correct, Counselor? I think I'm correct on that. So anyway, that's proof that they wanted a civil government, not a religious government. And in fact, there were no religious weddings in Plymouth Colony for about 70 years. So that's just a little bit about the background of some of my ancestors. But there would have been some of my family members at the first Thanksgiving. So when you folks settle down next week to have your Thanksgiving dinners with all your families and friends, just think of it as my family's treat.
Thank you. Good evening.
I'd like to say my name is Charlie. I am a resident of the great city of Corona for a long time. And the reason why I'm here today is just to address, I like where I'm seeing right now. I'm currently a student at Norco College, currently taking American politics, which is the reason why I am here. I'm happy to see that democracy is working well. We talk a lot about how democracy works in specifically the country, since this is American politics I'm studying, and the project was to come here and see how the Corona City Council handles their business. And I love to say that I am pleased on seeing how the city works with the community, with the McKinley Project. I know a friend who is close to the McKinley Project, and I was texting him right now. He's gonna love the updates that I'm providing to him. Going back to what the previous people have stated when it comes to what's going on outside the world and the ins and outs of American politics, how we do foreign policy and things like that. I think it's really great that I can express to you my thoughts and feelings on certain matters without the repercussion, especially how there are certain countries across the world that unfortunately don't do that. We could already see this with the conflicts. I'm not going to go into that. I've already had my personal opinions on that, but yeah, hopefully when I come back with the project done on December 7th, the next city council meeting, I'm hoping to present my copy to the city council. That's all I have to say, and thank you for your time.
We're happy to have you here, and I hope that your opinion doesn't change by the end of the meeting, because we have a lot more to go.
The project did say that I could stay as long as I can, so we'll see. We'll see.
Stick around if you want to hear more.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Edwards, are there any more speaker cards?
Mayor, no, we do not have any more speaker cards.
Moving on to public hearings. Continued public hearing and election for annexation number 36 into Community Facilities District number 2016-3, Maintenance Services. Does any council member want a staff report on this item? No. Okay. The public hearing is now open. Ms. Edwards, do you have proof of the publication and mailing of the notice of the public hearing?
Yes, I do.
Have any written protests been received?
We have not received any written protest.
Are there any registered voters within the area to be annexed to the CFD? And if so, how many?
There are no registered voters.
Have the owners of all taxable property proposed to be annexed to the CFD agreed to hold a special election on November 15th, 2023?
Yes, they have.
Do you agree to hold the special election on November 15th, 2023?
Yes, I do.
Are there any speaker cards from the public?
We do not have any speaker cards.
Okay, the public hearing is now closed. Okay, this item will require two motions. Do we have a motion, and is there a second?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second. Please vote. Okay. The recommendation is that, oh, I'm sorry, that item passes 5-0. That motion passes 5-0. The recommendation is that the city council adopt the following resolution. Resolution number 2023-112. Ms. Edwards, have you received any ballots and have you canvassed the ballots and tallied the results?
Mayor, yes, I received one ballot and all votes are cast in favor of levying the special taxes.
Okay, I'll make the first motion. I'll make the second motion, I should say.
Second.
Okay, that item passes 5-0. Moving on to item number, do we have a second one? The recommendation that the city council adopt the following resolution, resolution number 2023-113. Moving on to item number 18, continued public hearing for Community Facilities District number 2018-1, Bedford. Change proceedings for improvement area number 3 and improvement area number 4, conducting an election and consider adoption of resolutions and other official actions for change proceedings. The public hearing is now open for the change proceedings for Community Facilities District number 2018-1, Bedford, regarding the increase of bonded indebtedness for improvement area number 3, revisions to the rate and method of the appointment of special taxes for improvement area number 3 and improvement area number 4, and the levy of special taxes therein, and the determination of necessity to incur bonded indebtedness. Does any city council member want a staff report?
I'm sorry, but I do. I want to better understand what this means. There was a change and then there's an increase, and I'd like to better understand that.
Okay. Ms. Sitton, Finance Director, please present the report.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and council members, for this opportunity to speak on this item. This was continued from our last council meeting on November 1st. This was set for a public hearing, but one of the public notices had not been advertised correctly, so we had to continue it to this meeting. This is all related to the annexation that was approved at the November 1st meeting, and this is just more wrapping up the details of it. At the September 20th meeting, we'd approved multiple resolutions to move forward with annexing 31 additional acres into the CFD for Bedford. And that, again, that was approved at the November 1st meeting. And the resolutions before you tonight just wrap up and finalize those documents that we needed to complete the process for annexing that additional 31 acres. It's not going to have any impact on the homeowners that are in that particular CFD. It's just, like I said, cleaning up the final documents.
Okay. The red flag came in the verbiage, the increase of bonded indebtedness for improvement area number 3. So it's not going to have an impact on the residents. It doesn't change.
Correct. It doesn't
taxes.
change. Right, correct. It doesn't change. And Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but it does not change that.
Thank you.
That's correct.
That's good. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public or persons who wish to present any testimony or protest?
Mayor, we do not.
Have any written protests been received?
No, we have not received any written protest.
Are there any registered voters within the area to be annexed to the CFD, and if so, how many?
There are no registered voters.
Were notices of the public hearing for the change proceedings published and mailed to the appropriate landowners?
Yes, they were.
Have the owners of all taxable property in improvement area number 3s and 4 agreed to hold the special election on November 15th, 2023?
Yes, they have.
Do you agree to hold the special election on November 15th, 2023?
Yes, I do.
Public hearing is now closed. Oh, this item will require 4 motions. Thank you.
Hey, good luck with that.
Do we have a motion? Somebody? Yeah, all right.
I'll second your reading.
Thank you. Please vote. Okay, so that the recommendation is that the city council adopt the following resolution. Resolution number 2023-109. Do we have another motion? I'll move. Second. We've got 2 more, guys.
Second.
Please vote. That motion passes. So the recommendation that the city council adopt the following resolution, resolution number 2023-110. Ms. Edwards, have you received any ballots and have you canvassed the ballots and tallied the results?
Yes, I have received I have received the official ballot and all votes are cast in favor of modifying the rate and method of the apportionment of special taxes and the increase in the bonded indebtedness of improvement areas number 3 and 4.
Okay. I'll move.
Second.
Please vote. That item passes 5-0. The recommendation that the city council adopt the following resolution, resolution number 2023-111. I'll move.
Second.
Please vote. Okay. Introduced by title only and waive full reading of ordinance number 3385 of the City Council of the City of Corona, acting as a legislative body of Community Facilities District number 2018-1, Bedford, of the City of Corona, levying special taxes. Protest letters must be turned in prior to the closing of the public hearing in order to be counted. Anyone wishing to submit a protest letter, please submit to the letter to the city clerk. Okay, moving on to item number 19. Public hearing for City Council consideration of resolution approving the second amended and restated franchise agreement with USA Waste of California, Inc., and rate adjustments for additional solid waste services. Does any council member want a staff report on this item?
Yes. I do.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Casillas. Tom Moody, Utility Director, will provide a report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity. Dave Davis with MSW will provide a summary of the actions taken on this item tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Dave Davis with MSW Consultants, and just want to give kind of a 5-minute overview of the item before you tonight. And to do that, I want to talk about just the main program objectives of your solid waste program. I want to talk a little bit about the process that we've gone through, talk about some industry trends, and talk about the agreement that's before you tonight. So as I've talked to you before, when people talk to you in town about, hey, what's this solid waste program about? It's really simple. We just want to do two main things. We want to have safe, reliable service at a competitive cost. And secondly, we want to comply with the state's environmental recycling laws. Oh, that's all we're trying to do. Those are the only two things, and all the moving parts in this agreement tonight can be boiled down into those two things. And to get to where we are, we started about 2 years ago with a process negotiating with WM, or Waste Management, and along the way, we've come back to the council. Our first meeting was a meeting to talk about whether we should go out to bid or should we negotiate with Waste Management. And we decided it made sense to actually negotiate with them because we felt that going out to bid, you would end up kind of with the same result that you have tonight. So we also had a couple of city council seminars where we talked about, we gave you an update on the process and we got your feedback. We talked about things like, should the city do the billing for residential or should WM do it? We talked about adding household hazardous waste, more household hazardous waste programs to the system. Talked about revenue sharing and different things like this. So the bottom line is, through this process, we've kept the council up to date on where the negotiations are. We've solicited feedback from the council, and we've incorporated that feedback into the negotiations with Waste Management. And then along the way, we've talked about some industry trends that are creating upward pressure on rates. These are things like the driver shortage, and probably most importantly is this SB 1383 that we've talked about over the last couple of years, where the state has passed a law that basically says we need to keep organic material out of the landfill. And the reason why is because when you put organic material in the landfill and you deprive it of oxygen, it turns into methane, and that seeps into the atmosphere and traps heat in the atmosphere. So this is a very expensive statewide unfunded mandate that the city of Corona and all other jurisdictions across the state are required to comply with. So in addition to SB 1383, there's some other things going on in the solid waste industry. So for example, you heard a few years ago where China stopped accepting recyclable materials. So the market value for recyclables that most haulers would use to offset their operating cost went down. So that ended up making a net increase in their operating costs. And this has caused rates to go up all across the state. Other things like the cost of steel, and there's a driver shortage. So in addition to this SB 1383, there's these other factors that are contributing to this upward pressure on rates. So when we talk about solid waste agreements, I organize my thinking into three areas. One is the services that are provided. Two is the key terms or the deal points of the agreement. And then three is the rates. And regarding the services that are included in the agreement that you have before you tonight, you have all of the same services that are included in your current agreement. So you have the 3-cart collection system on the residential side. You have commercial recycling, organics collection. You have bulky item pickups for the single-family customers. You have free collection for city facilities and free service at city-sponsored special events. So the bottom line is that nothing is being eliminated or taken away out of your current agreement. The only thing that's happening is that we're adding new services. And the new services that we're adding mainly are due to this SB 1383, where now the hauler's having to accept food waste in with the green waste containers. So in the past, you've always had green waste collected, but that's been composted. And this new law requires food waste to go into that green waste container also. So we talked about this, it kind of changes the recipe and it makes it more expensive to process that material. And then this new law has all kinds of other regulatory requirements like container contamination, it's hard to say, contamination minimization. So the idea is that more and more people are going to recycle. You're going to have more people that didn't recycle before, and you're going to have more issues with contamination, which really drives up the cost for everybody. So there's a pretty robust protocol for minimizing contamination where you're actually going to have people, well, I think in this case, you're going to have WM looking at cameras, right? So their trucks are equipped with cameras, and you're going to have somebody in Arizona or someplace looking at material as it comes into the hopper. And as people don't recycle correctly, they're going to get feedback. And this is kind of one of the most probably impactful things to your ratepayer that's going to happen is there's going to start getting feedback when they don't recycle properly. So there's two ways to contaminate. One is to put recyclables in the trash, and the other is to put trash in the recyclables. So that's going to be an impact on your ratepayers, and it's going to increase the cost of collection. And as far as other additional services, there's going to be a mulch and compost giveaway. So I think 2 or 3 times a year, your residents will be able to come to a central location and get free mulch and compost out of a roll-off box. And then we're going to add a special cleanup event. And then we expanded the multifamily bulky item collection. So now even residents of multifamily apartments can now get bulky item collection. As far as the key terms, probably the most important thing is the length of the term of the contract. The current agreement, you may recall, it started, I think, in 2006, and it went for 10 years, and then it had this automatic renewal provision, which the council stopped, I think, in 2019. So as a result, the current agreement ends in November of 2026, and the agreement that you have tonight extends that by 10 years. So the term of the current agreement that you have tonight will go through November of 2036. But there's no automatic renewal. It's just a flat term, and it just stays like that until somebody changes it. It also includes an annual rate adjustment like your current agreement does, but we're going to use the CPI for all urban consumers, which is a little more favorable to the city. It also includes a performance audit provision, so every 3 years there's a requirement or allowance that the city can conduct a performance audit of WM, so they can go in and they can take a look at their billing accuracy, their safety, their payment of fees, their tonnage reporting, their customer service, So they can basically do a contract audit of WM every 3 years, and the company actually reimburses the city for that. So the city does it, but it's paid for by the company, and that's included in the agreement. It also includes liquidated damages for things where they're prescribed damages, where the hauler falls short in certain areas. You can assess a damage amount. It also includes dedicated staff. The other thing is that in your current agreement, the hauler has the right to determine where the material goes. In this new agreement, the city has the right, the flow control. So if for some reason you decide, hey, I want to have this material go to this facility, you can require them to do that. And it also includes the same franchise fees, the 11% on single family, the 15% on commercial. There's a 50 cent per home billing or administrative fee that the city retains, which is going to continue to retain. Something new is, though, the WM is going to start contributing $200,000 a year to the city for a beautification fee. So those are the key terms of the agreement. And then the third area is the rates. So the rates for residential are going to, right now, your residents pay $26.67, most of them. And that rate is going to go up about $2.11 to $28.78. And that's a 7.9% increase, which is a little bit higher than you'd normally see, but that's part of that. There's about 60 cents in there that's for the SB 1383 programs. So, and that's shown in your staff report, I think in Table 5, there's an anatomy of that increase in your residential rates. And then for your commercial, the commercial rates there's many commercial rates depending on the size of the container and the frequency of service. But the most common level of service is a 3 cubic yard bin that's picked up once a week. And right now, the rate for that is $154.76. And that is going to go up to $163.24, which is an increase of $7.48, or about 5.5%. So also in your packet, you can see we've included some graphs that compare the rates that are being adjusted to other rates for similar services in other cities. And if you look at tables or the graphs in Table 7 and Table 8, you can see, like if you look at Table 7, the third bar from the left is the city of Corona. So it's the third lowest rate of all these other cities in western Riverside County. And then in the commercial rate, about the fifth bar from the left is the rate for the city of Corona. So with the agreement that you have tonight, you have all the services to enable you to meet the solid waste program goals. So you have an agreement that's going to enable you to provide your citizens with safe, reliable service at a competitive cost, and it's going to enable you to meet the recycling environmental regulations of CalRecycle.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Did you have any questions?
I just wanted to thank you for the presentation, for the refresher. I know we went through the negotiation in detail as a council, but since folks have now received the notification of the rates going up, it's always a good idea to remind folks that everything that's coming with it, and the fact that our rates as the third lowest in the region is probably due to the fact that we have waste management in the area. We had a little bit of a negotiation. We had an extra card, I guess, in the deck that was favorable to us, and we were able to secure other items like the multifamily bulky cleanup, the investment in the community, the annual investment in the community. So thank you for the update. We've received some notification from folks, and I'm like, listen, this is a lot of stuff that's coming down the pike from Sacramento that needs to get implemented, and it impacts the bottom line. So thank you for that.
Okay. The public hearing is now open. Ms. Edwards, was the notice of the hearing on the proposed rate adjustment mailed as required by law?
Yes, it was.
Ms. Edwards, has the city clerk's office received correspondence?
Yes, we received 242 protest letters opposing the proposed rate adjustment. A majority protest exists if the city receives 26,749 protests. At this time, a majority protest does not exist.
Is there anyone here tonight that would like to address the city council regarding this proposed action?
Mayor, at this time, I have 2 speaker cards.
Good evening, Dale.
I'm not sure this is really relevant. I think a few of you saw my posts regarding waste management. Not real happy with the services out there. Went out there during the last week, and there were over 100 cars in line, not at the gate, but where the drop-offs are. It was over an hour wait of wasted fuel, wasted time, and wasted labor by businesses in our town that are trying to get rid of what they're, the pickups. So I talked to people that work in the booth that tell you where to park. And they said, well, I just do what I can. I said, can't you get with management? Well, that's above my pay grade. I had an hour in line, so I decided to spend it on the telephone. I finally got hold of Dave, the manager of the facility. He told me, well, I can't really explain to you how this operates. It's much too complex for you. I thought he was very he just a bad attitude. But I told him that there are only 5 spots and there's 100 cars waiting. He said, okay, let me see if I can open up another area. Within 5 minutes, they opened another area down below. The lines disappeared in 10 minutes. And I asked the guy, why isn't there a feedback loop through your operations to make sure that it's customer-oriented so that people don't have to spend an entire hour and a half just to get to a dump site? And I was going to say something. I know Wes saw my post. I said, there's something wrong when half the customers are in line have their cameras out taking pictures of the idiotic lines. And then I get lectured, well, you're not supposed to take cameras in there. It's illegal to take pictures in the dump. So I don't know what kind of secret thing is going on in there. But he decided to turn around and give me a lecture for taking photos. So I don't know what to say, but since you're in negotiations with him, I think something needs to be discussed about being more efficient on the drop-offs that people do make. It's part of our assets. If you live here, that's where you have to go. And I talked to a lot of people in line, and they mentioned over the last 2 or 3 years, it's done nothing but get worse. So that's it. I feel better. I've done my thing.
Thanks, Dale.
On Fuller, I bet that would have been fun to see somebody tell Dale Plung that something was too difficult for him to understand. I would have paid money to watch that one. I have a little bit of apology. I didn't do much homework on this, but I had one little question that came up. The gentleman was giving his presentation. Thank you for the presentation, by the way, and mentioned the price increase, and that was $2 and some odd cents, I believe. Is that about right? That you were was that on the residential price increase? Is that per container or per household? Per household. I'm sorry.
John, could you please direct your
Excuse
better?
me?
Can you please direct your questions to us?
Oh, okay,
And
but he was the one giving the
I know.
presentation.
We'll work with that with him as well.
Well, and it isn't that I think it's too complicated for you either. So, but I was just wondering if that was per household or per container and so forth.
We'll get you those answers, bud.
Okay. Well, that's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you.
you.
Are we still good?
Absolutely. Never
Okay,
better.
good.
Morgan, 2063. I was looking forward to bailing Dale out of dump jail for illegal photographs, but so one, I did finally get the language from the contract, and it does look at it's at the aggregate CPI rate, which is much better than the kind of contrived, made up one that they switched to in 17. So I want to thank, I'm pretty sure you're probably the one that drove it. We've talked about that before, before you were on the council too. So I know you knew about it. So I just wanted to see it with my own eyes because things don't always come out the way that you think they are. So thank you for that. The way I've been describing this to people is they're kind of the devil. I'll just put it that way. I don't like the fact that we're dealing with the devil, but we did, I think, make the best possible, most advantageous deal with the devil that we could. And I believe Ms. Casillas was largely, the driver about the multifamily pickup thing. That's huge. You see these piles of bulky materials outside of apartment complexes and townhomes because it was kind of impossible for them to get them picked up before. And so that is a huge get. So I do appreciate that. So the CPI, the rate being fixed is great. And we did I think we made a good deal. What I think people don't understand and they're not going to get and they're not going to be happy about, and I still haven't heard a good reason to explain it, is the separate billing. I think when people start getting a separate bill, and then when they have a problem, they're not going to be dealing with the nice people on the first floor. They're going to be in phone tree hell with waste management. Press 1 for so-and-so, state the reason why you're calling. Give me your account number, give me this, give me that. It's nonsense when you call those guys just to try to get a hold of them. It's the worst. And so when you have a problem with your billing now, you're not going to be talking to somebody here. You're going to be talking to somebody there. You're going to have to set up another account, another direct payment. There's going to be one more thing that people have to administer, even if the cost is going to be similar. And I still haven't heard a good explanation for why, they want to take on that expense and why we don't want to do it anymore, other than just possibly the dating that they think, in reducing the float or something might, be financially advantageous to them. So I do have a question. Somebody hit me up while this presentation was going on, asking about the multifamily pickup. Like, how many is it per unit that people get a certain number per unit? And then how would they know about this? Are they going to be notified individually by Waste Management or the city? And how would they go about contacting Waste Management for these pickups? And what are the rules? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan, I think we can get an answer to that question. I think that's very valid. One of the things that we're going to make sure we want to do is to let our folks in multifamily know how to utilize that service. So, Mr. Ellis, if we could get some clarification on that. Doesn't need to be right now, or unless there is an answer right now.
I believe we can provide that answer now if you'd like, yeah.
Okay.
Tom, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll have Waste Management come up and answer that question.
Okay.
Lily with Waste Management.
I think that's you, Mr. Davis.
No, we're going to have Waste Management come up and answer that.
I didn't see her back there.
Sorry, long walk. Good evening, Mayor, council members. Lily Quiroga with Waste Management. Everything in this contract is going to be an education campaign, including the multifamily program, which is going to be new. We are going to be working with city. We're going to be looking with an apartment association. We also have our own data, so it'll be a education campaign. We'll be sending mail outs to provide updates on all the new services, not only to the multifamily, but also the single residential households, commercial. It's going to be, like I said, it's taken us 2 years, but the real work starts now, and that is education, boots in the streets with being present at community events, direct mail, social media. So we'll be hitting different aspects to get this communication to our residents in Corona.
So I think the question was specifically, how do our residents that are in multifamily spaces get information about pickups for them, how many times, et cetera, that type of stuff? That's all going to be part of the educational campaign?
Yes, we'll be sending out a mailer.
Okay.
And that will also be given to the units. So that's the data that we'll be working with the cities to be able to get as complete data as we can for each multifamily, and it'll be a direct mail out we'll be doing.
Do you know the number right now, or do you need to go back and research it a little bit?
The units will be doing some homework on how many units each apartment building has. We obviously have the apartment buildings because we provide service to the building, and we have one contact for each of the accounts. But it's the homework that we're going to do is specifically making sure that we have the unit count for each multifamily.
I think Tom wants to know.
The households get 3 a year.
Right.
So will like an apartment get 3 a year?
Yes. So the multifamily new program is a tenant can call in, and at each request, they can put out up to 5 items, including e-waste and also batteries that they need to put in a bag, and they will be able to get that in up to 3 times a year, similar to the residential.
Thank you.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Yeah, just really quick, do you know, I mean, I appreciate a direct mailer. I think direct mail for me usually ends up in one of your recyclable bins before it makes it into the house. But will there be, part of your education campaign, will there be a website? Or will there be a link from our website?
So we also have a local website, and that's why I said we're going to be trying different forms of communication. We understand that not everyone's going to be looking at our print mail. That's why we're going to try social media. And also we have a local website as well as linking the information to the city's website.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Hey,
Perfect, thank you.
Lily, real quick,
Yes.
regarding Mr. Plong's concerns, are you able to get that message to the appropriate people at the dump? to
Yeah,
see if
I
they can
actually
improve?
spoke to him earlier, and I gave him my card, and what we're going to do is set up a meeting and have a discussion with our landfill management. Just to be clear, the landfill, we own the landfill, but it's a public-private partnership with Riverside County. The county staff runs the scale house. So we'll be relaying this concern back, and we will also set up a meeting.
Appreciate it. Normally, when you're going to the dump, it's at the end of the day and you're exhausted and you just want to get over it, and to wait an hour is not cool. So.
Completely understand. There's peaks and valleys with the usage of the landfill, and sometimes it does get pretty busy.
Sure.
And we'll try our best to accommodate the request.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Tony, I just had a really quick.
Oh, wait 1 second, Lily. I think
no-
we may have one more question. No?
Nope, no question. Just want to make a statement. I wanted to say thank you to Mr. Davis. Did an outstanding job working with Waste Management and staff to get a really, really great deal. I had a lot of people ask me questions about, why is the rate going up, and being able to explain just the machinations of the state's requirements and what they're asking us to do. And frankly, working through that with Waste Management for the last 2 years, we got a great deal. I'm very pleased. I talked to my colleagues in other cities and kind of tell them, what we're getting, and including the multifamily. And it was a brilliant idea from Councilmember Casillas, and very pleased that you're going to continue to be our carrier. You guys are a part of the community. You don't just show up when the contract is up. You guys are at every event. You sponsor probably every nonprofit in town. If they need trash cans, if they need anything else, you guys are always with your hand up, even if they call you last minute. I've heard a few of those stories. So just wanted to say thank you to staff, thank you to Mr. Davis, and again, thank you to Waste Management.
Okay. The public hearing is now closed. Ms. Edwards, has any additional protest letters been submitted during the public hearing?
Sorry, I was just checking. Mayor, we did not receive any additional protest letters. The total protest letters we received is 242 letters. The majority protest does not exist.
Do you have any questions or comments from my colleagues? No? Okay.
I'll move. So moved.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So we have a motion and we have a second. Please vote. Okay, that motion passes 5-0. The recommendation that the city council hold the public hearing, I don't need to read that, we're good. Okay, moving on to item number 20. Mr. Plung, I got a text message that your load wasn't covered, so I'll need to collect that fine. I think it's $25. Moving on to item number 20, the public hearing, change of zone 17-001 to change the zone of two parcels totaling approximately 3.47 acres from A-14.4, single-family residential minimum lot size of 14,400 square feet to R-1-8.4, single-family residential minimum lot size of 8,400 square feet, located on the south side of Corona Avenue and east of Interstate 15. The applicant Christine Lauder from Ballot LLC. Does any council member want a staff report on this item? No. The public hearing is now open. Ms. Edwards, has the city clerk's office received correspondence or any speaker cards from the public regarding this item?
Mayor, we did not receive correspondence. I just received a speaker card from the applicant letting the council know that he's present, that he's here.
Okay, well, we didn't have any questions, so the public hearing is now closed. I'll make the motion. Oh, I gotta read it.
Second.
Yep. Okay. There was a second, Ms. Edwards?
Yes, there was.
Okay. Recommendation that the city council adopt the subsequent mitigated negative declaration and mitigated monitoring plan and approve change of zone 17-001 as recommended by the Planning and Housing Commission. Introduced by title only and waive full reading for consideration of ordinance number 3386. First reading of an ordinance approving a change of zone to change the zoning on 3.47 acres located on the south side of Corona Avenue, east of Interstate 15 from A-14.4, single-family residential, 14,400 square feet minimum lot size to R-1-8.4, single-family residential, 8,400 square feet minimum lot size, CZ 17-001. Wow. Please vote. That motion passes 5-0. Mr. Ellis, did we save all of this for my last meeting so that I had to read everything? What is going on here?
Nicely done, Mr. Ellis, just want to say.
Item number 21, tentative track map 37024 to subdivide 6.25 acres into 15 single-family residential lots located on the south side of Corona Avenue and east of Interstate 15 in the R-1-8.4 zone. Applicant Christine Lauder Ballot LLC. It's not an advertised public hearing. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public?
Mayor, yes, I have one speaker card for this item.
Oh, come on down.
Mayor and members of the council, I'm Dave Leonard. I'm representing Christine Lauder and her family this evening, and I'm just here to answer any questions the council may have regarding this application.
I don't think we have any questions.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion.
I think there was a speaker.
Mayor, sorry, we do have a speaker card
Oh.
for this item.
I'm sorry.
So Mr. Leonard enjoyed your work on the planning commission at the county when you were there.
I mostly wanted to compliment the planning commission on this. There was a lot of little details and a lot of stuff that was discussed with regards to these two proposals. So I think the whole thing makes sense. And just to kind of connect the dot here, the house that's going to be taken out when this is all put together in the zone is the house that the Mexican American, we'll call him, scaled the hill and did a full Shining Jack Nicholson thing on my friend's house. And Rachel Boylan it came from that house. So I will be more than happy to hear that house is gone. And we have 15 nice new houses with 15 nice new neighbors and a nice new little neighborhood. they'll be perfectly happy. I think this is a perfectly great plan, but I mostly wanted to compliment the Planning Commission for going through the details. They had discussions before about having really small HOAs and heard about the kind of messes that those create and the liabilities. There's a drainage feature and stuff, so they're talking about possibly having a CFD instead, so the city can have more responsibility for it. And so all the little details that happened in that meeting it was nicely done by the Planning Commission. So, anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you. There's already a motion and there's already a second. Please vote. Okay, that motion passes 5-0. Moving on to administrative reports. Item number 22, adopt the 2024 legislative platform and financial priorities. Amina Mears, Assistant to the City Manager, and Sharon Gonzalez with RPPG will present the item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I have Sharon Gonzalez with RPPG presenting with me tonight. However, she's going to be joining us via Zoom. So tonight, we're asking that the council adopt the 2024 legislative platform, the 2024 financial priorities, to confirm and approve city-sponsored legislation initiatives, and to appoint 2 council delegates for legislative advocacy meetings. Starting with our 2024 legislative platform, we will have Sharon briefly discuss the legislative process.
Great. Good morning. Good evening. Sorry about that. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Sharon Gonzalez with RPPG. Good to be with you this evening. So wanted to just give you a quick update as to where we are in the legislative process. Usually our cycle is a 2-year session, and we are nearing the end of the first year. So we are right now we're in the 23-24 legislative session, and session adjourned in September of this year. So we have been in this interim period where we spend a month where the governor has his process to sign and veto bills. On the city level, what we do is RPPG works with staff to touch base with each of your department directors to go over legislative priorities as well as changes to the platform, which we brought to you last month for consideration, hoping to adopt this month in November. And that really gives us time to take the feedback that we get from you and start, making updates to the platform, but also start putting together possible proposals for legislative sponsorships, as well as start scheduling those meetings that we normally have to go over financial priorities. And then session will reconvene in January of 2024. That's the next slide.
So, council, just as Sharon just mentioned, we had the fall council workshop, so I'm pretty sure you're already familiar with the tenets of the platform. But as a reminder, the platform is divided into 11 sections, and they deal with the following topics: community services, economic development, home rule, housing reform, homelessness, municipal finance, public safety, public utilities, tort reform, transportation, and unfunded mandates. So additions to the 2024 platform include initiatives for library funding, a Parks and Recreation Trails project, and support for volunteer reimbursement. Economic development-wise, we've added language promoting surplus land act requirements for redevelopment and more. We've also added language regarding housing reform, specifically rent stabilization and anti-displacement legislation. And we've also added language for municipal finance and water conservation under the utilities section. And lastly, we added a new section for human resources and risk management. Objectives in this section will include tenets such as supporting maximum flexibility for local government in contracting and contract negotiations, along with the other objectives you see listed here tonight. This concludes this portion of the presentation regarding the platform. Are there any questions regarding the platform?
Looks like there's going to be a couple questions. So go ahead, Councilmember Speak.
Thank you. I just had a couple to talk about. One, under 8.6A, it reads, supports efforts that would stabilize electricity rates and give cities the ability to municipalize utilities. I want to basically delete everything past the word rates, because I don't think any of us want to buy any more utilities.
What's that item?
It's 8.6A.
6A.
And then under 11.2, I know we talked about it during the workshop. We talked about adding the support for truth in tolling, and I know we have that somewhere else, but I don't see it in the in the platform. I know we talked about it, but I don't see it here. And then that's 11.2, and then adding in 11.4. Support funding and planning of rail facilities along the I-15. Because I think all we have in there is this high-speed rail, and that's not going to happen in a very long time. And then 11.5C, it talks about HOV lanes, and we don't have any anymore in the city.
So for the purposes of just providing clarity, it would be helpful if you could move specific language that you're looking for, just to make sure that we don't misinterpret anything that you're recommending there.
So I'll start from the beginning then. So on, I would like to move with the following additions and deletions. First, on 8.6, I'd like to delete everything after the word rates.
What item is that?
That is 8.6, section 8.6A. At the end of section 11.2, I would like to add support for truth in tolling. Section 11.4, I would like to add the following. Support funding and planning of rail facilities along I-15 to support growth along the I-15 corridor and lessen traffic impacts on the I-15 and Corona streets. And on section 11.5C, I would like to strike completely, because it talks about HOV lanes.
Hey, Wes, on 8.6A,
Sure.
are you saying delete B through J, or just delete
everything
this
after the word rates?
in only A?
8.6A.
So B through J can stay, it's just item A. Cool.
Yeah,
Those are good catches.
that's all I had, sir.
I second that motion.
Okay, so there's been a motion and a second to add and strike what Councilmember Speak has asked for. Please vote.
Oh, I just want to make a comment. I'm just glad that we added this in housing reform, support for state-managed rent stabilization. I think that's a really big thing. So, good job, Corona.
Councilmember Casilla, oh,
I also wanted to add that this is just our adopted, so if something comes up that doesn't quite fit in here, any one of us can raise our hand and say we want to have a discussion. Because there were a couple things where the wording is kind of ambiguous, but, looking forward to it.
Okay, so that item passes with the changes that Councilmember Speak had suggested. Moving on to, let me see.
Mayor,
Yep.
we still have the financial priorities portion. Would you?
Oh.
So that's just the good part.
So then let me recap. So that I can make sure I'm on the right page. We had a motion to add and subtract the items that Councilmember Speak did to the legislative platform. Now we're going to go on to the financial priorities, and then we will vote on accepting both of them.
On the overall package, that's correct. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Speak. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to our financial priorities. Our financial priorities are divided into 6 sections: community services, economic development, homelessness, public safety, public utilities, and transportation. So adding to the list of funding priorities for 2024 are funding for trails and trailhead construction, as well as funding for the Corona Wildfire Resilience Initiative. Priorities from the 2023 list that has since been funded and now removed from the 2024 listing includes the Santa Ana River Bottom Encampment Response Plan. The city, in collaboration with the county's housing department and several other partners, secured a $11 million in grant funding, and the city of Corona received $1 million of that funding. The body worn and in-car camera enhancement project has also been since funded, as well as the Emergency Operations Center Infrastructure Enhancement Project and the Ontario Avenue Widening Project. So looking into 2024, we seek the council's approval on the ranking of the financial priorities as well. Ranking financial priorities help staff to make quicker decisions on a wide range of major projects, initiatives, and ongoing activities. Staff has provided proposed rankings for each section of the 2024 priorities draft for council consideration. We'll talk about these rankings right now. So for community services, we have ranked the City Park Revitalization Project as number 1. Park improvements is number 2, and the Historic Civic Center renovations number 3. We also have the new Trails and Trailhead Construction Project ranked as number 4, and the Corona Airport Improvements and Lease Extension is number 5. Under public safety, we have the funding for artificial intelligence resources to assist in criminal investigations as number 1. And we also have the funding for a new training facility as number 2. Funding for this project will include Connex boxes, land and soil testing, cementing, curbing, gravel, basic utilities, and infrastructure build-out. Lastly, we have the funding for the Wildfire Resilience Initiative project. And funding for this project will go towards the creation of defensible spaces around properties, the enhancement of early detection systems, the acquisition of state-of-the-art firefighting equipment, and outreach. For public utility, we have 8 projects. Number 1 would be reclaimed water reservoirs. Number 2, desalter facility. Number 3, a granular activated carbon treatment facility. At number 4, we have the reclamation facility number 2. And the reclamation facility for priority number 5. Then at number 6, we have the lift station replacement project. Number 7, sewer main replacement. And at number 8, we have the West End Wellfield development. And then lastly, we have 2 projects for transportation. The Magnolia Avenue Widening and Temescal Wash project and the I-15 Corridor Improvement Project in Corona. Are there any questions regarding the 2024 financial priorities and their rankings?
Thank you, Ms. Mears. Do I have any questions for my colleagues? Councilmember Casillas.
Can you not look so annoyed? Ms. Mears, I want to add to this document context. So I think it's important that, so if somebody were to pick up this document, they don't see this as like a financial priorities for the city of Corona, like what we're funding. This is like our wish list to our state legislators, because sometimes they have the opportunity to secure funds for us. And so when they do that, they'll come to us and say like, hey, what are your top projects? And when we have a list ready, we're more apt to receive money, and we're more apt to get them all to say the same thing. And now that we have 2 state assembly members, 2 state senators, we leave this document behind, we can tell them all to advocate for this one thing, because every member in the state legislature gets to ask for money every year. And so we want them all to be saying the same thing. Corona needs this, and that'll increase. That's how we got some money for the wildfire, the fire. We got some for the Griffin Park, and there was something else. So in this little blurb at the top, which says this document provides a comprehensive look at Corona's funding needs, can we insert a sentence or some sort of verbiage there that says like funding needs, supplementing our legislative priorities in service of, or something like providing the context that this document is essentially like a wish list for state funds. Like, we're gonna get through this stuff and find money to make it happen one way or the other, but if we can get other people's money, that's really what we're trying to do here.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I just, 5.2 is listed at 175 million. I might have some news on some of that in a month or two.
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
5.2, the $175 million.
Uh-huh.
I may have some news on that next month.
Well, that,
Good news? So that may be a lower number.
well, you know what, we'll still ask for 175 million
Well,
and
I mean.
we'll figure something else.
Part of what Councilmember Casillas was saying is also that we need to be realistic in some of these things. That if someone sees 175 million, they're going to go next. So maybe that's for later on, but.
It can, Mayor, if I may, if you'd like to give us the direction that should we receive any good news, we will reduce the ask for our legislators by that amount. We can always have that direction in advance so we can adapt in advance of those meeting with legislators should we have some good news along the way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon, did you have anything to add to this portion?
No, I would maybe just mention, while we use this for state asks, we can also use them for federal opportunities as well now.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll now turn this portion over to Sharon. She's going to talk about city-sponsored legislation.
Great, thank you. So last year we started to have a conversation on city-sponsored legislation, really approaching it as kind of a multi-year effort, identifying what the key priorities amongst the city are. So when we're going through the process, the steps that we take is to really identify what the problem is, because most legislation begins with an idea or a concept, and then it's developed from there, which is why I say it's a multi-year effort. We look for whether or not there's a legislative solution, whether or not there's partners that we can work with, and what's the political climate. We're going into an election year, so what we're going to see a lot of are statement bills, which a legislator might introduce solely for the purpose of getting some press releases out of it, a little bit of media coverage, and then in turn that's used for campaign opportunities, knowing that it's not going to be heard in a policy committee or actually go through the legislative process. And a sponsor is an individual or group that brings a legislative idea to a lawmaker to be considered for legislation. If you could go to the next slide. So to the potential city, right there, thank you. So last year when we were talking, we've narrowed down the thoughts to 6 different kind of areas that were coming up a lot, at least in the meetings that I was having with the department heads, where we thought that there could potentially be a legislative fix. I will say that even 6 it's a lot to kind of have to maneuver and filter through. But what they were having to deal with serial lawsuits under the Public Records Act, addressing some of the restrictions in the Surplus Lands Act, dealing with the community care doctrine and abandoned cars, Proposition 47, auxiliary lanes, and truth in tolling. Go to the next slide. So for this year, looking at kind of narrowing it down a little bit, based on what we've seen with this year, we have about a third of the legislature's new. So now we have a year under our belt. We kind of see where some of the priorities are, what some of the changes might be, looking to kind of focus on 4 areas, one being surplus lands, truth in tolling, potentially auxiliary lanes, and rent stabilization based on the conversation that we had last month. But that being said, I did want to kind of go through and let you know the progress that's been made on all of the efforts that we've discussed. If you could go to the next slide, please. So under the Public Records Act, it was brought up, if we could have potentially a right to cure where you've got these serial lawsuits where you have a few defendants who are filing hundreds of lawsuits in a year, knowing that it's in an agency's best interest to just settle and be done with it. And we had addressed a concept of really targeting these serial lawsuits, and I actually brought it to Cal Cities, and sometimes they have to go through their policy committee and have a vote, but they actually have kind of within their authority to address this. It's something that their lobbyists got really excited about. So it got down to a matter of us figuring out a couple of different proposals and identifying some authors we could talk to about it. So we did have initial conversations with Senator Roth's office. They were pretty honest. They didn't want to carry anything this past year, but they were interested in the idea. So I think that there's a proposal that RPPG worked on with our attorneys plus Cal Cities. So we'll probably reconvene those conversations. Also, we started a Public Records Act working group amongst local government agencies to talk about some of these different issues. And there's a potential that, we could have a nice large coalition to address something along these lines if we can get everyone on the same page. Next slide. So the Surplus Lands Act, where we left things off last year was that we wanted to one of the concepts we had talked about with surplus lands was looking to either exempt like a downtown core area, or if that was too broad, maybe look for something, a general exemption that would allow for local agencies in general to have some flexibility with the SLA. So last year, the organization CalEd, California Association on Economic Development, they started working with Senator Caballero, who's the chair of the Governance and Finance Committee, on a kind of a broad sweeping bill to the SLA. So in talking with Assemblymember Cervantes' office, she did introduce her bill, AB 983, just as a placeholder, hoping to get kind of a broad downtown core exemption placed into Senator Caballero's bill. As her bill moved through the process, it actually got watered down further and further with a lot of those exemptions being taken out. So given that we're in the beginning, or it's a 2-year session, there's still a possibility for her to move that bill next year. And by her, I mean Assemblymember Cervantes. Next slide, please. Prop 47, when I talk about statement bills, I'm usually talking about bills that address Proposition 47. If you recall, the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act passed in 2014, which reclassified a lot of felonies and wobblers to misdemeanors. And it's been a huge problem for the public safety community. So when we talked about this, we talked about potentially working with Cal Chiefs, state sheriffs, California Peace Officers Associations, and Cal Cities on some type of solution. The Assembly Public Safety Committee has been a really hard committee to deal with in the last few years. They don't even hear the bills, let alone, they could hear bills and just kill them, but they don't, a lot of times they don't even hear them. We are going to see a shakeup in that committee this year. And the new speaker, Robert Rivas, has convened a assembly committee on retail theft, and he's telling them to act with urgency to address this issue. They haven't set any informational hearings yet, but we are probably expecting to get one set for sometime in December. And then if you go to the next one, please. So this was a big issue when we were talking about potential sponsored bills last year. And what it would require is an amendment to the community caretaking doctrine and looking to amend AB 2876 by Assemblymember Jones Sawyer, which really limits law enforcement's authority to remove and seize vehicles. Assemblymember Jones Sawyer is the chair of the Public Safety Committee, so we really knew that we didn't have the political climate to address this, but it is something that we continue to follow really closely. What we've seen with legislation is it's actually going in the opposite direction, limiting law enforcement's ability to, they're kind of targeting, you can't cite anyone who's operating a bicycle in places that they shouldn't. It's kind of going in the opposite direction. So we continue to monitor to see when that opportunity arises, and then we'll potentially be able to put some proposal together at that time. Next slide. And then these were added on after the fall workshop last year. So it was part of the adopted platform at the very end, which was, I believe, in December. So our timing this year is a lot better. It gives us time to actually start putting some proposals together before legislators get back to Sacramento. So auxiliary lanes, a concept for this would be to create a limited exemption to allow for an auxiliary lane that's longer than 1 mile. Currently, you cannot exceed that 1 mile limit, or to use the shoulder as an option. And we would need to work with Caltrans and CalCog and your local COGs to probably pursue something in this area. And then truth in tolls being the last one, letting consumers know in advance what the cost of the toll will be and having that displayed. I'm happy to open that up to any questions or discussion.
Did my colleagues have any questions? No? Okay.
So looking ahead, just some opportunities in addition to the sponsorships. We've talked before about legislative action days. It's been weird because I think while a lot of local agencies went back in person, the legislature went back in person. On the state agency side, it's kind of been trickling, but I do feel like now everything is fully back in person, taking meetings. So it's an opportunity for the council and for staff to take, existing efforts that coincide with your legislative days, whether it be with Cal Cities, Cal Ed, CMUA, Cal Chiefs, or any other organization that you might be a part of. And we are happy to work with you to set up meetings with your lawmakers, policy committee staff, which, are the ones who are really driving the messaging behind the bills, and as well as state agencies to discuss Corona-specific priorities. And then also always, anytime we can work on a regional level, that's, it creates a greater opportunity for success. So also looking into 2024, once we adopt the platform and the financial priorities, we start having our meetings with our lawmakers, talking about, the meetings usually are to focus on the financial priorities, but it's also an opportunity for us to talk about what's important to the city, what struggles are being had, as well as what, potentially the sponsorship opportunities, things that we would like to see happen. And then take into mind that 2024 is an election year. That always means that time is being kind of pulled in different directions. There's serving your district and being amongst your constituents, the work that's happening up here in Sacramento, as well as potentially running for whatever seat might be that your legislator might be running for. And we do have new leadership, both in the Assembly and in the Senate. I don't see much changing on the Senate side, but given kind of the power struggle that was occurring in the Assembly, we do plan on seeing a shakeup in committees, which could make things interesting. Careful what I wish for. But with that, we'll have the new committee assignments. I mentioned public safety. I've already heard that on the assembly side, we'll have a new transportation chair as well as a new appropriations chair. So different dynamics there. And then we do have declining state revenues after a few years of incredible surplus. Revenues do continue to go down. However, we don't have an accurate picture of what that looks like because IRS tax returns were deferred from April to October. And then in October, they were deferred again till November 16th. And Department of Finance is currently working on a budget. So I do think that next year on the budget side, it will be a little wonky because we won't be working with accurate numbers, so probably the May revised.
Thank you, Sharon. So again, tonight we ask that the City Council adopt the 2024 legislative platform, the 2024 financial priorities, confirm city-sponsored legislation initiatives, and appoint 2 council delegates for our legislative advocacy meetings. And that concludes our presentation for tonight.
Thank you. Is there any questions by my colleagues? No. Okay. So do you want us to vote on this first and then appoint 2 council delegates? Huh? Or do we have any speaker cards? I guess I should ask first.
Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards for this item.
Perfect. Okay, so let's take a vote and then we'll appoint Jackie and Wes. Do we have a motion?
Motion for the Dream Team.
Okay, this motion for our legislative platform and financial platform passes. And thank you to Councilmember Speak and Councilmember Casillas for volunteering to be the delegates. Thank you so much.
I was actually going to volunteer.
Of course you were. You were going to be one regardless, so whether you volunteered or not. So, all right, moving on to item number 23, the professional services agreement with Rios Inc. for architectural and engineering design services for the City Park Revitalization Project. Request for proposal 24-006 SB in the amount of $7,596,343 and a creation of a new capital improvement project titled City Park Revitalization. Appropriation of $10 million from the Parks and Recreation Reserve within the Measure X Fund. Justin Tucker, Assistant City Manager, will present the item. Oh, there you are.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I am so excited to bring this item before you today. It is the award for the RFP for the City Park Revitalization Project. And our ask to you today is that you award the RFP for City Park Revitalization Project to Rios Inc. for the architecture and engineering design services in the amount that Mayor Daddario said, about $7.6 million. This is an exciting project. And we want to go back a little bit, review the background, look at how these proposals were evaluated, and talk about next steps. So going to the background, the road to revitalization for City Park has been a long one. City Park has been in need of some energy for quite a bit of time. In 2010, City Council approved a City Park reutilization plan, and then nothing happened between 2010 and 2021. There were some cleanups. I think I volunteered to clean up some slides, but more or less, City Park has been where it's at for a long time. In 2021, it became a priority in the city's strategic plan. And in 2022, we started some significant community engagement that started in 2022 and as continues today. In 2023, that community engagement helped shape the City Park Master Plan, which you all adopted. And then the next step is to take that master plan, make some refinements, and then hire a firm to do the architecture and engineering so that we can bring that plan to action. What's not on the slide as well is something I think that's important. In between the City Park Master Plan adoption and now, a team of city staff have been out visiting community centers and getting a feel for what those look like and feel like so that we can bring those, a great community center to our lovely city. So in the strategic plan, this is under the goal of 3, sound infrastructure. Over 1,000 stakeholders participated in the development of the strategic plan, and they weighed in on what they wanted the future of the city to look like. In that goal 3, one of the objectives was to enhance parks and rec facilities and redevelop City Park, including a new full-service, purpose-built community center. Now, I think that's important to mention because nearly all of our community buildings have been repurposed. So the Circle City Center was once something different. The Historic Civic Center was, previous to this, also a school and a city hall before what we're using it now. Our senior center used to be a fire station. Victoria was something else, and Auburndale used to be an HOA meeting building. So the idea of building a purpose-built community center is important in order to fulfill all of the potential opportunities that we can throughout the city. So to move this goal forward, we engaged in a master planning project. We did a significant amount of community outreach, including over 2,100 residents, asking them what they would like at City Park. And that plan was adopted in July of 2023. This is the visual of the City Park Master Plan. As a reminder, that master plan includes a new aquatics facility, community buildings, an iconic playground, a splash pad, a multi-use field or the community canvas, an all-wheel plaza, walking paths, other plazas, a stage for outdoor performances, and walking trails. We think that this will ultimately bring some additional energy back to City Park. So when we awarded the RFP for the City Park Master Plan in July of 2022, and we adopted that plan in July of 2023. Like I said, between 22 and 23, we made sure that our community and stakeholder input was incorporated in the plan for that park. Since the adoption of that master plan, like I said, a team from Community Services and Public Works and City Manager's Office have been out looking at community buildings. We issued an RFP for design services. We had 11 proposals that were received in September. That team evaluated those proposals. We had interviews with the top 5, and we're bringing the request of award to you tonight. We're going to talk about the how these were evaluated and the highest scoring proposal. So like all of these RFPs, we scored all of the proposals based on a rubric for transparency's sake. The qualifications of the firm, the qualifications of the personnel, experience with similar work, an understanding of the project and a work plan, the availability to meet project timeline, and then the overall value. And those were all scored. The top 5 scoring firms were invited to interview with our staff. And during these interviews, they were asked to present about their work plan, including an understanding of our needs, how they would proceed with that work plan, and then a general fit for the project. Any remaining time during that hour was allocated to Q&A. And so the reviewers scored these interviews based on these 3 criteria and an overall assessment of the proposals. So once again, that evaluation team had 3 members from Community Services, 2 members from Public Works, and myself from City Manager's Office. Those proposals, there were 11 of those. For the sake of transparency, those ranged in price between $5.9 million and $10.2 million for the A&E work. We forwarded those 5 for the interviews. Once again, for transparency's sake, the price on those was between $5.9 and $10 million for those design services. And the highest scoring proposal was Rios Inc. and the team that Rios Inc. built for $7.6 million. During the interview, it was really clear that they had given the project a lot of thought. They had reviewed the master plan, they'd reviewed the documents, they'd reviewed the downtown revitalization plan, they had visited the site prior to the interview to get a really good sense of what the environment looked like, the surroundings looked like, to get a good feel for the site, and to think through what they had seen in the documents. They understood the importance of the site to the downtown and the downtown revitalization. They spoke to its history and its place in the community. They talked about the usage of the site and how to reactivate that. And then when we asked them some additional questions, like what additional things would you do to that site that we hadn't thought about? They said things like, we think that we can save more trees. And they said they had some other ideas about how to be more spatially and economically efficient on the site. They talked about some ideas for value engineering and cost reduction. But most importantly, they had a really genuine excitement about the project that was contagious. Rios is a firm that started in 1985. They have offices in Los Angeles, Austin, Boulder, London, Singapore, Shanghai. They have over 250 staff. And what was unique about Rios is that they were unique among many of the proposals in that each of their designs was different. And there wasn't a cookie cutter. They have on their team a historic resources firm to help understand the nature of the park and our specific needs being in a historic district. They didn't have one design that they showcased in particular that said, this is what we do. So if you look at these pictures, they're great pictures on their proposals, but these pictures sort of demonstrate the variety of different things that they can do based on their clients' needs. So in the upper left-hand corner, we have a dance class going in a recreation room. They have a community room in the center. They have a community room in the lower left, and they look completely different. They talked about open space, like this park in downtown Los Angeles, where there are people doing yoga. In the upper right-hand corner, we have a picture of a recreation facility, and then we have a picture of a recreation facility in the lower right-hand corner. And that they're all slightly different. They have done projects, some really big signature projects. For example, the Grand Park in downtown LA that connects City Hall and the performing arts spaces. The Lynn Wyatt Square for Performing Arts in Houston, Texas, which I'll show you in just a second. The resort at Playa Vista in Los Angeles. The Watts Community Center. Lulu's Place in Los Angeles, which is a big recreation facility. The Palm Springs Downtown Park, which I'll show you in a second. The Universal Plaza and Community Room in Tigard, Oregon. They have a wide range of possibilities, of great projects that show the range of their possibilities. I want to give you an example of one thing that I think is particularly interesting and was a big sell for the interviewer panel. This is a picture of a small park in Palm Springs. It's called the Palm Springs Downtown Park. It was awarded the American Society of Landscape Architects Award of Excellence, which is landscape architecture's highest honor in 2022. It's a small 1.5 acre park, but in that space, they were able to design different little mini spaces where there's an outdoor theater where you can have some community gatherings. There's a palm grove to show off nature elements. There's a water feature. There are restrooms. There's a buffer. If you look at the way that they've approached their projects, they're unique to that specific location. So for example, in the lower left-hand corner, you'll see how they looked at different textures and shapes and colors to create the seating arrangements in the walls because of Palm Springs' natural environment. They were those kinds of rocks. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see that the way that they designed the shade structures were based on local biological patterns, and they're unique to that site. The water feature is a waterfall that's a big gigantic rock, and then right below that is some spray features. Their plant palette in the bottom right shows the range of different colors, styles, growth patterns, and how they've located those throughout the space. And then in the center picture in the bottom, you see two people walking through, which is the Palm Grove, just a special place to just walk through. All these pictures are in their proposals, but I wanted to point out the fact that they had carefully thought about where they were working, the types of materials, the types of construction, and made those designs unique to that space. This is another example that I think that is really important to point out. This is a project in Texas. It's called the Lynn Wyatt Square. And in the upper left-hand corner, you see, like right in the middle, is this essentially a city block. and they took time to understand what was going on around that city block and the different usages of the space. And like I said, there are bigger pictures of this in their proposals. The bottom left is a construction design, and in the bright green right in the center is the conceptual layout. And so they designed this space with the way that people move in and out of those spaces. On the left, I wanted to show you just that as they're building things that they've actually drawn. They look similar to those things. And in the center picture, that is a completed picture of that site. What was most important to us was on the right-hand side, though, which is trying to understand where people would be during different times of the day and for different events. And so if we want to have a city park that's active, we want to have those spaces active throughout the day. And Rios's examples showed us how those spaces would be used for different things at different times. And that was a pretty convincing argument about how the strength of their understanding of each of these spaces. So given all of that, a lot of this has been pretty technical, but they also make really fun places to be. And that's what we want to have for City Park. So I drew out a couple pictures. The picture in the upper right is in Tigard, Oregon. It's a small space. It's a community room where they have some green active spaces. They have a water feature. They have walking trails. They have playground equipment. And they've modeled that so that that's an active place. In the bottom right, they've designed spaces that are open and green that are available for everybody, like our community canvas that we want to have. In the top center, we have a water feature like we would like to have. Not that one in particular, but we want to have a water feature. This one comes out of Palm Springs, and it's unique. The playground in the center uses elevation to create play, but it looks like a fun place where I want to be. In the upper left, that's just a bigger picture of that same playground. They've used shade. It just looks like a place where it would draw kids. And ultimately, we want to rebuild that aquatics center, and they have a portion of their team has worked pretty significantly on a lot of really active aquatics facilities. So, the highest ranking proposal came from Rios, and the next steps are, if the contract is awarded, they would start with a kickoff meeting in November, and you can see through that blue arrow in their design work plan, there would be a significant amount of stakeholder input between the Historic Preservation Society, the Parks and Recreation Commission, the Planning Commission, the City Council. They would all be able to have time to weigh in on any refinements to the plan that we want to make. They would do research and site visits. They would go back and refine any of the layouts. And then we would come to a point where we would make a decision about that final layout. In their work plan, they have three proposed, they can bring back to us 3 conceptual changes. And then we would come to a final design in about July, and they would start working on the construction docs, and then they would go to bidding. Once we have the final design and a good start on the construction documents, at that point we will have a much better sense of how much the total project will cost. And until then, we're basing some of these ideas about how much it would cost on the master plan documents. But as we move towards a final design, we'll be able to better know what those true costs will be. And because I think there's some concern about the big costs, this would be probably one of the largest investments that the city will make in a non-infrastructure project in a really long time. And as a reminder, we have been holding some of our Measure X in reserve for things like this in a parks fund. And right now, we anticipate that we'll have about $30 million to contribute towards this sort of project. And then in order to fulfill the rest of those gaps, we would go for general fund lease revenue bonds. Those are the same types of bonds that we've used in the past to build City Hall and the courtyard. These do not raise taxes. They don't impose additional fees on other individuals in the community. What they do is that they allocate a portion of the general fund to pay off that bond revenue debt over time. And so this is a standard way to fund things that with our reserve fund savings and these municipal bonds, we anticipate we'll be able to pay for this project without a significant hit to the other portions of the budget. So, our ask tonight is to have the council award the RFP for City Park Revitalization Project to Rios, Inc. for architecture and engineering design services in the amount of about $7.6 million. That concludes my presentation, but I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. I'm going to go to see if there's any speaker cards from the public.
Mayor, yes, we have 3 speaker cards for this item.
Good evening.
Hello and good evening. My name is Tom Munoz. I am Parks and Recreation Commissioner, chairperson at this point in time, and I'm also a landscape architect. And so I come to you as 3 things, both a commissioner, a landscape architect, and a citizen of Corona. I'm happy that council is being asked to approve the contract for Rios. I know them personally, and they are a very well-rounded landscape architectural team. They're a competitor to my office, by the way, but they're very good. And secondly, as a chance for over the last year or so to review the documentation by different presenters, the other team presented to our commission staff a variety of items and we made our points of view of various parts of the project, the aquatic center, the buildings, the canvas, and I was concerned about parking and traffic analysis, community involvement, and I'm happy to see that on the contract that we received last night from City that there's several things that were included in the documentation. One was traffic analysis and parking lot analysis also. That's the key to the success of any park project, especially at this size. And then, so it's good to see that happen in place. And fourth, I'd like to say that one of the key things that we need to look at, and they're doing that, is taking time to review the topo survey. And then whether it's done an aerial topo survey or done by the ground, I don't know which, but they're being asked to review that documentation, which is vital to the existence of the existing oak trees. The trees are, for the most part, all historical. And there's over 100 trees that are historical on the site there. And so I'm asking that as a challenge to council, and a challenge to Wes and to Tom Richards, that they be there on site when they actually review the topo survey at the site itself. It's one thing to look at a plan view as a paper, two-dimensionally, but it's better to have you go in the site to look at the topo survey. The reason why is that the roots that are existing on site there are well beyond the canopy of the broad scope of the trees. So when that happens, you have roots that are far-reaching. So I'm excited to hear that the team, Rios, wants to look at that and preserving more trees. That's going to be the key to the success of our city park. It's a good investment for our kids, our families, and our future. But we need to step back a little bit, look at the existing trees, because they're a major ingredient, a major personality, a major living force within our city of Corona. I think that's about it. And then lastly, I'd like to say that an arborist probably should be on the team. They have a well-rounded team, and I didn't see really a person or a firm that's an arborist point-based type firm. I think we need the key to look at, and really a non-biased arborist, to look at the trees to see what they look like in person, touch the trees, feel the trees, and become one with the trees. So thank you for the opportunity. Any questions? I'm available. Thank you.
Joe Morgan, 2063 Ren. I feel like also losing somebody else that I've known tonight. This park. I grew up in and around this park, and I think that not too many years from now, nobody's going to recognize this park. It's not going to be the same park. I think it's a crying shame and very sad to just consider this to be basically developable land. When you talk about the trees, I think about 150 trees of all the trees in there are going to be actually retained. They'll be saved. It's going to be new trees. You know, we're just going to, basically this park's getting scraped and rebuilt just like it was a shopping mall. It's going to be sort of like a civic center light. And that's sad. For all the discussion that happens here every day that we have no history, we have no legacy, we have no nothing that links us to the past anymore because everything's been torn down. This is how it happens. It's one incremental, set of good intentions after another that basically lose us the tie to the past. This park will no longer be a park like you would think of a park. This is going to be closer in design and feel to this place than it will be to a great park with a bunch of bitchin' old trees. It's a really wonderful park. We have a park like not a lot of cities have, and we won't have it anymore. So, what I've seen from this is seems like a lot of people want to build some stuff, and I get that, want to make a change, but this also isn't integrated into the rest of the plan, into the rest of the Parks Master Plan. It's not even part of it. It's like a whole separate thing. We've been trying to do this whole thing where we're figuring out what needs to go where based on the whole city's needs, except for this one. This one, we're just going to go, and we're going to build our little Disneyland. We're going to build our little junior city hall. And, I wish that we put the same design and the same effort and parceled it out of the few of the other parks. We don't put this kind of effort and design into the flow and the workings of other parks. So we're going to spend $100 million down here, but we're not spending we're not even spending $10 million really at the other parks. We're not putting any fraction of this into any of the other parks. My dad used to have a term called, he would call it cutting off your nose to spite your face. There's people down here at this park that we don't like, and because we don't like the people that are at the park, we're gonna basically scrape it and make it where it's not friendly. They're still gonna be there. Changing some of the architecture is not gonna change it, but we're gonna lose the park. We're not gonna have a park anymore. It's gonna be a campus. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rory Connell, angry taxpayer, Corona resident. Anytime I hear the words Measure X come up, the hair on the back of my neck stands up. I want to remind everyone that voted yes on Measure X to go back and look at all the flyers the public pension cheerleaders sent to your mailbox and who knocked on your door and what they talked about. Nowhere did it say anything about City Park. It was for public safety. And now we're building City Park, and then I hear lots of wordsmithing from the staff. We think this will be a good idea. This is going to be great. It's going to be fun. It's going to be all these things, but I didn't hear or see anything in the community survey that said, do you want to spend more money than we have already on the park, or do you just want a park? Right? It's those leading questions in the survey that we talked about that don't really answer the question. It just gets you the answer you want. So here we are. We've got fun, we've got opinions, we've got more money we're spending on a park. And I'm not opposed to improving City Park. My first organized sports game was in City Park. I love City Park. If you get rid of the pump in City Park, I'm gonna be really pissed. I will raise hell if you get rid of the pump in City Park. But as I look at it all, I wonder, you've got your opinions, you've got your fun, you got your raises, now you want a park. And who's it for? Is it for your egos? Is it because you want to build something? Because I didn't once hear you mention anything about the economic impact to the surrounding community. I didn't hear anybody talk about Raj and his gas station on the corner and what effect this has on him or how it could benefit him. And what are we going to do those red line districts? Those are real things that were created in this community. And how is this going to benefit those people? That wasn't mentioned in this report. None of that was mentioned. So I just see spending more money, and then you say, we're gonna take a bond against the general fund, and it's not gonna cost any additional taxpayer money. My tax dollars are my tax dollars, dude. And where they come from and what you call them in your wordsmithing game matters to me. So please, as you look at this, yeah, we need to improve City Park, we need the pool, but do we need to spend that much money on something this shiny? It's a pretty sweet park. It's got good bones. It's got a good foundation, but none of this is kosher when all of this was sold as public safety under Measure X, not a park that's overinflated and it's just here to put a nice stamp so we get an award like Palm Springs. So you can pad your resumes with this staff, people, whatever you want to do, but it's all crap. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, do you have any questions or comments from my colleagues?
Yes. So, Dr. Tucker, just a couple of questions. One, so I was looking through the proposal, and Rios looks fantastic. I did some research on them, and they do really great work. I looked at their proposal, looked really closely at their cost proposal, and I'm fine with everything through task 6. Task 7 is construction documents, and I think we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. Reading their proposal, they're talking about they're gonna talk to all of us. They're gonna talk to the stakeholders. They're gonna come back with a design to us. And to me, I think it would be getting ahead of ourselves to award that portion of the contract to start construction documents before we all have a chance and the public has a chance to weigh in on where we're going. So I don't have any problem with this. I think that because all we're funding today is just the design portion, and what we build and when we build it is going to be a future discussion. But I'm hesitant, or actually I would not like to fund task 7 and 8, and which is, I think it's construction docs, permitting, and
Go back to that slide so that we all can see it.
Sure.
Thank you.
I don't know if it was on the slide, but
I think it's this one right here.
yeah, I don't think it has the task numbers, but in the cost proposal, it's I want to say it comes up to, of that 7.5 million, it's 3.3. So 3.3 million of that is for just for task 7, and then task 8, because it doesn't really have a task 8, doesn't show a number. It just says permitting and construction phase costs, and that's another 1.8 million. So a big portion of that money, I think, frankly, we should be sitting on until we know exactly what they've designed and the costs before we unleash that. So I don't have any issues with their work. It looks beautiful. I'm really excited to see what they have planned. But at the same time, I'm also concerned we still haven't seen, what our cost is going to be for our Parks Master Plan. And I know the Trails Master Plan is part of some other funding, but, I want to be able to weigh this in so that, when the final design does come back to us, that we can really measure that out to what else we're funding in the city. And I don't have any problem with spending money in the correct place, but I also want to make sure that we're not pre-funding things. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Peak?
You want to go again?
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Steiner.
I'll do. Let me go again.
No, I mean, I'm ready to do something down there, and I'm ready to see a design so we can see how we want to move forward. I did have a question for the city manager. What was the breakdown again of, off the top of your head, of Measure X when it was on the ballot? What percentage was going to what? Because it wasn't just about public safety.
Correct. It does expand beyond that. We didn't break down for the purposes of Measure X any particular percentage that would be spent on public safety. Obviously, that's formed the largest share.
A big portion to parks.
Is part of our, we certainly talked about it when we did our
What we were
community
going to
engagement.
spend our Measure X money on. Public safety, parks, but I just
Correct.
remember the percentage.
We have. Public safety made up, we'll say, about 30%. Parks was about 25%. That's what we've been reporting out on the last few years as part of that pie chart.
That's what I wanted to answer. Thank you.
Councilmember Casillas?
I have a few questions and then some comments. Mr. Tucker, could you speak to, are we able to get real dollars if we don't have construction documents in the next steps? Because I think there's a lot of concern about true costs, and I think the next steps needs to get us some true cost figures. Are we able to get true costs if we don't have construction docs?
I think by the time we get to the final designs, we'll have a better sense. And ultimately, we won't know the true costs until we go out to bid. Right. So in the master plan, we have, engineering estimates based on, pretty generic things. By the time we get down to a final design, we'll have a better sense of what those costs are going to be. And ultimately, we won't know the true costs until we actually go out to bid.
Okay. And so then the value of the construction costs, can you speak a little bit more to that? What are they? And could we afford to delay that? I'm wondering about Councilmember Speak's request to not fund the construction docs part of the next steps.
Sure. So if we were to sort of separate this, if that's what your direction is tonight, then we would have to go back and renegotiate that with Rios. Rios is a big firm, and obviously they're trying to plan out their workload. The proposal, that the scope of work that we asked them to do was to do all of these tasks together. And we can see if they would be willing to split that into two separate phases. Is that what you're asking? Like two
I'm
separate
trying to better
proposals?
understand what constitutes the construction documents and its value. Just trying to understand the request by Councilmember Speak.
Can I jump in? So what it is in the architectural and design world is you'll put a plan together, you'll say, this is what we're gonna do. Here's your layout, here's what everything's gonna look like. They give some details, greater details than we've ever seen so far. And then once you pull the trigger, that's when you go into construction documents. And really what construction documents are is to make the plan check people happy. You're getting into the intricacies, you're getting the engineers more involved. They're really construction documents is just, we're fine tuning it, we're making your blueprints the Bible. Good luck with plan check. Joanne, hopefully you can help them out. And that's all that portion is for construction documents, is to get it permit ready.
So then that probably would set us up better for going out to bid, right? Because we'd be able to show in the RFP process, this is exactly what we're trying to build. So tell us what this is gonna cost. So that seems pretty important.
And if I can chime in, you can't go out to bid unless you have your construction documents. So
Got it.
you need those if you're going to be
Okay,
preparing for that.
Okay, all right. Mr. Tucker, can you speak a little bit to the current design and the buildings? Will those be for like event space? We had an earlier discussion and study session about event space, and now I'm curious.
Yeah, so thank you for asking that question. As our evaluation team has gone out, we've gone to more than half a dozen community centers. A typical community center will have some recreation and programming space that can be used for classes, community gathering, and then many of them, if not all of them, have had like a banquet type facility, have like a preparation kitchen that they can rent out for events, a ballroom. They'll have nice spaces, and then they'll also have very active spaces. And so some of these places that we visited have senior programs where the senior programs occupy the active spaces in the morning and the early afternoon, and then those active spaces get utilized by teenagers in the afternoon and evening, and then people coming home from work in the later evening. So you program classes there. They're rented out on weekends. They have state of the city events in different parts of the wing in those community buildings. So they're multi-use buildings, but to your point about this, your conversation earlier today about having a nice lobby and a rentable ballroom kind of space, a lot of those community centers have that as part of the community center as a separate wing. And then the other wing is devoted to like classrooms, a gymnasium, a fitness type center, or something like that.
Thank you. And that's interesting too about the program space and how that would be like available to our seniors, because I know our senior center there's several events that just don't fit there anymore. So for programming space. Okay, those were it for my questions. Now comments. You know, it's really funny because there's been some misinformation or what have you, or just misunderstanding of what this project is. And I'm glad that you've clarified that it isn't an additional tax. It's not going on anyone's property. We can chew gum and walk at the same time. It doesn't stop us from investing in other parks, which is something that we're doing already. What is baffling though is that, you talk to the folks around the community or anyone really about City Park and what do you think about City Park? And the trees is probably not the first thing that they bring up. It's the condition of the park and the neglect over the last several years. And we've done a lot to address the needs of folks that have been using the park currently. We have opened up our homeless shelter, and we have a homeless strategic plan. And we've done a lot to enforce our anti-encampment laws. But what I miss about that park is the families and the safety, and we haven't had that in decades. So I love the trees, and I want to preserve as many of those as possible. But especially that community is deserving of a good park. And what is that going to do to their neighborhood? I guarantee you it's gonna make it safer. It's gonna make it look nicer. It's probably gonna increase some property values. It's probably gonna help those businesses nearby get more business, because now you actually have foot traffic in the park. It's absurd that the argument is being made that developing this park is going to hurt the neighbors. Leaving it as it is better. That's ridiculous. So when this came before us, and as a reminder, it's been coming before the community for well over a year, and the community will continue to have opportunities for input. And so far, 2,100 folks have engaged, and we cannot discount their engagement. I was in favor of even bigger plans. I wanted an enclosed water facility. I want something we can use year-round. And I still believe that we could do probably more than we have before us. So I believe that we are not only on a better track than we were when, 2010? They said we were going to do something, and then we haven't touched it. Like a lot of things. I want to see this move forward. I want to see it move forward I want us to go big on City Park. We have everything in our power to make this part and this city, this very important park, everything it could be, and to re-engage that part of the community. So I'm so in favor of all this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. It's probably not going to be a surprise that I go over the history of this park. It was the park started off with vision. At the time that it was built, it was 1913, and our city had less than 15,000 residents. It was when the park was brought before council and the citizens, they said, "How dare you go so big? How dare you put your heart into this?" And but it was talked out. The conversation was had. The land was probably a little cheaper than it is nowadays, but the city made the purchase, and they got on board with the vision, and it was a big vision then as well. When they first laid out the park, they laid it out in 2 half circles, and it was to pay homage to the boulevard, circular boulevard. They built it with the 2 half circles. Eventually, one thing that's probably not known about City Park is it's always changing. It's never stayed the same. Over the years, it's had a World War I cannon brought to it straight from Germany that was captured. It was brought into town on rail and escorted over there by a horse and the mayor. It was placed in the middle. People loved it. When World War II came around, they scrapped it to support the war effort. City Park had a pond at one time. Nobody knows it. Kids would come, all of the kids would come, and they would play in the pond and they would have a great time. We have old videos of monkeys being at City Park. We have videos of trees being planted. There's buildings that once stood at City Park that are no longer there, and it's just because the buildings wore out. There was a while when all of the early pioneers of Corona would meet at City Park, and by the hundreds, and they would have contests to see who lived in the city longest. And there were people that were there from 1886 and onwards, and they would trade photographs and tell stories. There was a time in our community where baseball was a big deal. especially amongst the Hispanic community. The first baseball teams, the Hispanic baseball teams, were organized at City Park. That's where they played. That's where they gathered. It was known far and away that families in Corona would go to City Park. That was their place. And it wasn't just the whites, it wasn't the Mexicans. It was every family in our city that enjoyed City Park. The pump should stay or find another location. But through it all, there's always been a vision of City Park. It wasn't until 30, 40 years ago that our city grew and we've decided to neglect City Park. We've lost our vision. I've been up a few nights this week worried about this one topic. I really didn't care about the last budget thing that we went over. I've been worried about City Park, and I've seen good friends that I cherish deeply let it be known that they oppose spending so much money on City Park. And I've tried to take their comments to heart and centralize them because I value their opinions and I value the opinions of our citizens. And when they speak out, their words mean greatly to me. But I can't get the vision out of my head, and I feel like it's been pulling me. And this quote comes to mind. It says, if you are working on something exciting that you really care about, you don't have to be pushed. The vision pulls you. The vision's pulling me. I think it's pulling my fellow council members. I get it that they want to walk cautiously into the money. I want to spend the $100 million. I'm ready to go. I'm already there. But cautiously walk is fine. This is the time. I would rather gamble on our vision than make a Me Too park. I think we could do it. I think when they built the municipal plunge in 1925, it was vision. We hired Corona's first architect, Leo Croonin, to do it. Our swimming pool never replaced it, never matched up to the municipal plunge. They lost their vision. We as a council have a chance to provide our vision. I think we have the right team in place. I think Rios is the right architecture firm. I thank you, Tom, for supporting them and knowing them in your career. Justin, I thank you for your presentation and bringing your A game to this one. I'm all in on City Park. If someone wants to yell at me on Facebook, God bless them, let them do it. But I'll stand here ready to go, and those are my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I think that's one of the most enjoyable history lessons that I've received from you. So thank you. I mean that nicely too. You know, I'm really excited about this. One of the things that really stood out to me is, regardless of whether we don't build the pool, do build the pool, don't do a skate park, do a skate park, we still have to do all of the engineering, all of the design. And I think one of the things that I wanted to get some clarification on that Mr. Speak had pointed out is that in final design, or there's going to be lots of refining before we get to a final design. And I think once we get to a final design, that's our decision to make. And if we're good with that final design, I don't see any reason to hold up construction docs. I mean, just to move forward with the bidding and the RFP. I do think, however, that final design period is going to be very important, because we're going to get feedback, we're going to get a lot of stakeholder input, we're going to learn a whole hell of a lot between now and July. And so I just want to make sure that that park that we put forth is the right park, and like the Vice Mayor said, that the vision is there and it's clear. So I'm excited about this as well. I'm very excited about this, and I'm happy that our community is going to take a 110-year-old park that's seen several iterations over the last 110 years, and we're going to move it forward to hopefully last another 110 years. And I guarantee in 50, 60 years, somebody's going to say, let's do something different. I won't be here, probably. So that being said, if there's no other questions, I believe we need to make a vote.
I'll make the motion. I just wanted to clarify, Dr. Tucker, you said that we would need to go back to them and ask them if they could bifurcate their proposal, and that's not what I'm asking for. What I'm asking for is that we don't authorize task 7, 8, and 9, or whatever those are, until we have a final design. I'm basically just saying that, and I don't want to start on things that we may or may not build. So we need to have that discussion, I think, as a council and as a community. So I'm fine with moving forward. However, I would like that my motion would be to award, this is as noted, however, that task 7, 8, and whatever I don't think it has an 8 or a 9, but those last 2 tasks would not be authorized until final design was approved here.
Councilmember Speak, it can actually be built into the process.
That's what I thought.
Because until we approve the final design, we will not issue that notice to proceed to move to the next task. So it can be built into the contract.
That's exactly what I was asking. So that's my motion.
But I want to see everything that the design that's before us now, the thing that we've agreed on.
Nope.
I want to see everything.
The design is not before us now.
Then I will make an alternative motion to accept this item as presented by staff.
Jackie, before you make your motion, I think what Wes is saying was pretty much what was already built into the contract.
It's rehashing the design, which ultimately we can decide whether or not we're going to build everything, yes.
But Wes, correct me if I'm wrong. Wes, you're already saying we're going forward with the design that we have now. You're just stopping it before construction documents, right?
Yes, because what's going to happen, I'm hoping, and based on what Rios has done in previous projects, that they're going to take our rough design and they're going to improve upon it based on their experience. So what I'm saying is it's going to come back to us anyway. You can see it in I just want a defined stop, that's all.
What I don't want is for us to rehash the conversation we've already had about the design.
We don't have a design.
I think we
The
are.
proposal that we have in front of us
We do not have a design.
about the aquatic center and the buildings.
Mayor, could I clarify?
That proposal was just vision boarding. These are all things that are possibility in this space. Now is the time that we're going to get where the rubber meets the road, and they're going to fine tune a design. We have no design right now.
We have nothing.
We have a vision board of things that we want to see in the park, amenities that we want to see in the park. But what we're doing today is approving that final design. This is where this goes. This is where this goes. This is where this goes. This is how it's laid out.
Yes, I like this color. Yes, I like this, where this road is. Yes, I like the height of this, or I would like to have the lobby look like this. That's what we're going to be talking about in July.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
This
Mr. Ellis?
is a vision board that we have currently.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a conceptual master plan. And so if I'm hearing you right, Councilmember Speak, you're okay with approving the motion, but you want to do that with the caveat that we come back before we issue a notice to proceed so that council can sign off on the final design before we continue to complete the rest of the contract.
Just a small tweak. Exactly what you said, however, those tasks, specific construction dock tasks, won't be authorized to go forward, which is typical. I work in task phases all the time, and clients will regularly say, you're authorized for phase 1 through 6, and you can do 7 and 8 when we tell you to. That's an everyday thing with every consultant I've ever worked with. So, and I think I'm getting the head nod from Director Compu and that's all I'm asking. I'm not asking to change anything. All I'm saying is that I don't want to prepare construction docs before we have all, and the residents and the taxpayers in this city get to weigh in.
Okay.
And I think that that's built into the plan.
Correct.
If I read that correctly, I believe that that's built into the plan. They're not going to go ahead on any final thing until everybody is
Correct.
signed off on it.
That's built into
Right. And Councilmember Casillas, I just want to make sure that your point is thoroughly vetted out, because I don't want anyone to think that we pushed you through something. But as far as I'm concerned, but as far as I'm concerned, we don't have a plan. We have a vision board
Okay.
of all the amenities that we've heard feedback from the community and us. This is all the stuff that we want.
Okay.
is it even possible? Now let's start fine tuning that.
All right.
Okay.
And
So I don't think that there needs to be an amended motion because I think that it was okay the way it was. Now that we've talked about it, there's going to be a stop before final approval before we go to construction docs, right? And Councilmember Casillas is going to make sure that everything is jammed in there and her and Vice Mayor want the Taj Mahal of the parks. Got it? Good. I think I moved, or maybe I seconded.
West move.
I moved, but I wanted Mike.
Okay. Perfect. Please vote. Okay, that motion passes 5-0. Moving on to item number 24.
I'm looking at our deputy city attorney, and she's wincing over there, so I want to make sure we did it okay.
You did in the motion. I think we just want to make sure that we're clear on the direction that, and I think Mayor Daddario had it, that it's built into this, that there are tasks, and typically our contracts are going to give us the ability to move from one task to the next. So as long as
That wasn't my motion. My motion was that we would proceed through task 6, and that task 7 and beyond would not be authorized, which is something that we can put in, as Director Compu has said. And that was my motion.
until it comes back to the council. Is
Yes.
that what you're?
Yes. Still looking to award the full amount.
Yes, and his motion wasn't necessary because it's already built into the
No,
contract. Thank
that's
you.
not. That is not what I said, and that
No,
is
no,
not what's in the contract.
It is in the contract, and that's what Savat was saying, is that before we go into construction
No,
documents.
he's saying
it co-
typically that is, but that's not the, I mean, I read the thing. I don't know who else read it, but I read it for word, and that's not what it says.
What might be a useful thing then is for the council member to make a motion for the council to vote on that. And if you agree with it, do. And if you don't, then an alternate motion can be made just for clarification's sake, since we, I think, are caught in semantics.
Jacob, just confirming, Wes's motion doesn't create anything that's going to cause other problems with the Rios.
I don't know that for a fact. What I'm hearing is he doesn't want to authorize the final stages of it. I don't think it's atypical for a council with contracts like these to issue notices to proceed through different steps. He's stating that he does not want to authorize the final step of that contract. I don't know that Rios will like that or not. I'd have to confirm that with them.
I don't know, Wes. That's why I'm asking. Yeah, I'm good with proceeding as it's written.
I second that.
I think that's what we already voted on.
I think you voted on Councilmember Speak's motion, if I heard it correctly. That's what my concern is.
Okay, well, then, Ms. Raymond, can we start over from the beginning? And
Ask the city clerk what she's recorded.
The motion that was on the floor was the motion that Councilmember Speak made. And then Councilmember Casillas made a motion, but it was not second.
Okay.
That's when I chimed in because I just wanted to get clarification before I voted if that was going to cause all kinds of problems. I have no idea. That's not my background. And I want that answer.
I'll make a point of clarification. The clerk is just assured that my motion was voted upon and approved. And if we want to go back, I'd ask the attorney what the policy is for that.
So at this point, you're going to need to have a motion to reconsider. It needs to be made by somebody who in the majority, which is all 5 of you, so basically any one of you can make that substitute motion. Or a motion to reconsider the motion that was just carried. I think what the concern, what City Manager Ellis was concerned with is, have you authorized the full expenditure that it has been placed before you, or have you authorized up to task 7? And that's what the concern is going back to the consultant and ensuring that they are willing to do the contract if it stops at 6, or have they factored in doing the entire project?
That's a legitimate question. I said that's a legitimate question.
Can I ask a question, Savad? Do you know for a fact that the council has to give approval before they go into construction documents?
It is the council's purview to make that recommendation to you. They can do that.
Then
They
I
don't have
think
to.
what the mayor has said is true. We've basically, Wes's motion follows. Wes, you tell me what's different. You want to stop construct, you want to vote before construction documents, and Savad is saying that's what it is.
No, it's not what he said. He
Okay.
said that can be, it's within our purview.
Well,
to
if
do
it's in
so.
our purview, then then
He
it
just
can be.
did. So I'm saying is that I guess I don't know how many more times I can explain it. I think that Director Compu has said that it's within our purview to specify. I made the motion. There was a vote taken. If somebody wants to change it to something else, then you guys are welcome to do so.
Okay, I'll make the, Jamie, what do I need to do to recall this thing?
Excuse me, you want to make a motion to reconsider Councilmember Speak's motion. And then that motion, that's just to put it back on the floor.
Okay, I
Then
want to
somebody
do
can
that.
make a
I
new
want to make a
motion.
motion to reconsider Councilmember Speak's motion.
Sure, I'll second. This is just cleaning up.
This is just to
cleaning up the
basically,
vote.
we want to reconsider it. So you need to have a motion
the
on
vote.
that, then you can have another discussion.
Okay.
And then a motion on whatever
Okay,
you want
just
to do.
cleaning it up.
Okay, please vote on the motion to reconsider. Okay, that item passes 4-1. Now we're back to item number 23. And for clarification, Mr. Compu, how is it that we get to a point where this council has gotten all of the information and feedback from the public and all of the information that we need in order to make a final design and then send it to construction docs? How do we do that in the actual language?
Can I just suggest that, that in the proposal, it says that they'll bring 3 conceptual designs, they'll have time to review them, and then they'll work on one final one that would need approval by the council. And I can't see a possibility where you'd start construction documents on a building that you don't have a final design for, that's been approved. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So it goes
Like,
back to
you
the
would have to
mayor's
have
point that the original agenda has this natural stopping point, which, if I'm understanding Councilmember Speak's desire, that's what we want. We want a natural stopping point before we move forward with construction docs. So the mayor's point was, that's what's written there already.
So if I can just clarify again, then, the motion on the floor, if you approve it as presented, is to authorize the entire amount. But what I'm hearing is, with the caveat that before we go to construction documents, this comes back to the council for final approval before we issue the notice to proceed. But you're authorizing the whole amount, but you're telling us not to proceed with the final stage for construction documents until the council has signed off on that design. Does that reflect the?
It is, but does that mean that you need to talk to Rios before?
Not if you approve it as presented. You're approving the entire contract, but you need to sign off on the final design before they prepare the construction documents. But you've authorized the entire contract if you approve as presented.
Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that
Ask me
statement?
if I
Wes?
understand, because I think I'm the only person that read the contract. So I'm fine. You guys already voted on it. It's a vote.
All we did
Let's move
did
on.
was vote to go back
Yeah, that's it.
to square one.
Clean it up.
So, but the city manager is specifying language that I want to make sure. It seems to me it goes along the thought process of what you're saying, that we're approving the full amount, but we don't go to construction docs until this body has signed off on final approval, which is
It's exactly what I said.
That's what exactly.
okay. Then I don't think a new motion is required if we're giving you the direction by accepting this as the full amount
Need to
and
vote
awarding
again.
it, but we want final authorization before it goes to construction
That's
docs.
exactly what I said.
So now that you have, now that you need to make a motion, you may move as recommended with that caveat, and I think.
Okay, So I'll make a motion that we approve this with the caveat that it does not go to construction docs until we have final approval.
You just move it as it's recommended,
As presented?
as presented.
There we go.
Excellent.
I'll second.
No substitute language.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, passes 4-1. Moving on to item number 24, City Council receive and file an update on water conservation regulatory framework. Katie Hockett, Assistant Director of Utilities, there you are, will present the item.
Good evening. I have about 100 slides. It'll take like 45 minutes.
You're not doing yourself any favors, Ms. Hockett.
I'm just kidding. We'll make this the Reader's Digest version for everybody. So we just wanted to come tonight to give you an update on the Making Conservation a Way of Life regulatory framework, which is the official long title. So the ask tonight is just for you to receive the update, and we'll get right into it. I want to start with a disclaimer that the framework is not finalized. This presentation is based on regulations that were issued on August 18th, and we do want to say a special thank you to Western for providing a lot of the regional leadership on this item, and also I also borrowed a lot of their graphics for this as well, with their permission. So tonight we'll talk about the history and how we got here. We'll define the urban water use objective and introduce our first of many ridiculous acronyms. Then we'll review the components of that water use objective, the enforcement, activity to date, and where we go from here. So we are here because of these three laws. In 2018, the state legislature passed AB 1668 and SB 606. Creating this framework. At that time, they adopted these indoor standards, so that GPCD is gallons per capita per day, and that was set at 55 starting in 2020, 52.5 in 2025, and 50 in 2030. In 2022, the state legislature adopted SB 1157, which dropped those indoor targets to 55, 47, and 42. So moving the goalpost even further for us. So what is the urban water use objective? So this is an aggregate, efficient water usage based on our agency characteristics. We do not have to meet the standards individually, and we will get into what those components are. We are not required to meet them individually, and budgets from the state are not set for individual customers. It's set for our water agency as a whole. So I just want to caveat that as well. This is hard to read, but I have also provided you with some acronym reminders. So these little circles provide the inputs for the water use objective calculation. And I don't intend for you to be able to read all of this fine detail, but the intent is to show you that there's many factors that go into this. So it's not just a simple calculation. We'll come back to some of these acronyms in the future, but we will talk about CII, which is a much easier way to say commercial, industrial, and institutional. So those are our businesses, our industries, and our city buildings and school buildings. The dedicated irrigation meter is that DIM, and then the MUM is the mixed use meters, which are meters that serve both irrigation and indoor usage. So we'll start with the residential indoor standard. Again, that is 55, 47, and then 42 starting in 2030. One of the things that the state will tell you about the regulations is that they've built in many provisions and flexibility to the regulations, and to that I say maybe for some, but not for Corona. There are accommodations for like temporary seasonal populations and things like populations that have a lot of evaporative coolers. Those don't apply to us. So just to give you kind of a caveat, this will require an update to our water budget calculation when we do future rate studies. So we'll just move along. This is the outdoor standard. This is a very similar calculation to what we currently use for our water budget for the outdoor usage. I mean, the calculation is the same. The way it's presented is different. 4 times 1 is 4, 2 times 2 is 4. So if you were to compare it exactly to our water budget, it's not going to look exactly the same, but the intent is the same. And at the bottom there where it says LEF, another acronym, that's the efficiency factor. So right now we're at 0.8 in Corona. That's how we calculate the water budgets. And it's going to continue to drop in the future. So that means that instead of getting water for 100% of your landscaping, you're getting it for 80%, and then 63%, and then 55%. And you'll see that there are different landscape efficiency standards for residential and commercial, which we will get into later. So just benchmark that for now.
Katie, I gotta go back to that really quick. I want everybody to understand what this means. Your water bill's going up. Your water bill is going to go up a lot. Just based, they're going to cut down so you're going to be going into higher tiers faster.
Exactly.
And this is 100% driven by the folks in Sacramento.
This is an unfunded mandate. I think it's our third one of the night.
Yeah, this is crazy. You're going to see, so of your water budget is going to be cut in half.
Correct.
Awesome.
And again, some of the guidance that the state provides is, well, you can change out your landscaping from turf to low water using landscape. And again, to that we say, for our disadvantaged community and for our lower income customers, they don't have the resources to make that happen. So that's not a simple, well, we'll just take out our grass. It doesn't work like that. Anyway, moving on. So again, like I said, there are lots of variances and flexibilities built into the law, and we don't have horses. We don't have, sorry, this is an old slide, and I apologize for that. We don't have landscaped areas that are being irrigated with high TDS recycled water, and we don't want to have areas that are being irrigated with high TDS recycled water. We're not doing a lot of dust control, and a lot of the dust control we do for construction, we try to use recycled water as much as possible whenever feasible. To my knowledge, we don't have any ponds and lakes that are there solely to sustain wildlife. Again, water for emergency events, possibly if there's a big fire, but again, it would have to be over 5% of the usage for the year, and I don't see that happening. That's a big number. And residential agriculture, we don't have that either. So thanks for the flexibility. It doesn't really apply. On the water loss side, we're actually doing really well here, and we have met the standard through 2035. I apologize, it's been a long day. But we met the standard here, so we're good here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Again, I'm going to go back to those temporary provisions and things. So the state will allow us to give homeowners and everything additional water for things like pools and planting new trees and watering so that you can establish your landscaping. And that's something that we already do as part of our variance program, where we do allow for that. Not everybody knows about it. We do our best to make that known. If you're filling your pool or you got new landscaping, you need to do some stuff. And that's a very helpful provision. There's a lot of administrative work that would have to go into tracking that and seeing if that even meets the threshold for the requirement. So now we're going to move into our commercial, industrial, and institutional. And it's a little bit of a misnomer because they call this best management practices, which makes you think that it's voluntary, and it really isn't. Again, back to those mixed use meters. They would like us to identify all of the accounts where they have irrigation on those mixed use meters, and specifically where we have large landscapes, which are sites that are using more than 500,000 gallons per year. There's some question on our behalf about when that happens. Is it as soon as they hit the 500,000? Is it 3 years in a row they hit that number? There's not really any clarity on that. There just says 500,000. And then we would need to install dedicated irrigation meters, likely not us, likely the customer, or they would have to have in lieu technologies. And in lieu technologies are things like taking out their grass and putting in low water using plants, doing rebates for sprinklers, et cetera, et cetera. We would have to do 20 of these by 2026 and 20% each year after that until we're done. And the non-functional turf provision that was in the emergency guidelines that we had in the last few years would become permanent. We would be required to present something to the city council to amend the municipal code to say that non-functional turf cannot be watered with potable water. Again, a lot of this gets back to fairness and equity, and that a lot of these spaces are used by individuals who maybe live in apartments or things that they use that space. Again, we've had a lot of conversations about that tonight. And so is that really a fair impact to the community? Again, we can track a lot of things. We can see if they're using a specific kind of grass, and there's a lot of administrative work that we could do to say that we're doing the right thing, but it wouldn't be a necessarily easy or labor-free. And again, we have to start making 20% progress by 2026 and then 20% each year after that.
Just really quick, going back to that, non-functional turf just means turf that no one's playing on. So if there's turf in front of a multifamily where people like to just relax under the grass, that is non-functional, correct?
That is non-functional. Yeah, I think I don't have the regulations in front of me, I apologize, but there's actually specific provisions that say like HOA common areas would be non-functional.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, the CII performance measures, we have to identify all the disclosable buildings. That just is a fancy way of saying any buildings that are over 50,000 square feet. That's by January 1st of 2025. By July 1st, 2025, like I said, we have to ban the irrigation of non-functional turf. And then starting in 2026, we have to do these other items that are on the far right, and we have to do 20% of them a year until we're done. And that includes identifying all the sites and installing the dedicated landscape meters. We have to go through and classify all of them according to the Energy Star portfolio manager categories. And I'm not 100% sure what that administrative lift looks like. That's not something we're capturing now. And again, we talked about this briefly, but the outdoor standard would continue to go down, and we'll get to that at the end. The compliance, we have the standard, the performance measures, we've kind of beat this one to death, so I'll move you on. So you might say, well, why don't we just not do this? Why do we have to comply with this? And they have built in a lot of teeth on this law to say that in a dry year, consecutive dry years, the fine would be $10,000 per day in which the violation occurs. In a regular year, it would be $1,000 a day. So there are certainly significant fines that are built into this. So they want us to take it seriously. So what have we done to date? We have presented in person to the State Water Resources Control Board. We have also submitted our written comments to say that this is really too aggressive and it's unattainable for our communities, and it's disproportionately and negatively impacts our disadvantaged communities and our inland residents. And we're asking our communities to try to conserve their way out of a water infrastructure crisis, and it's really not, we're asking the wrong people for the wrong thing. And that's the content of our comments. It's the content of most of the comments of other water agencies, particularly in our area. But there's a lot of people who are very interested in this. So again, our take is that the compliance will be a significant administrative lift for us. It's not impossible for us to comply with this regulation. We can certainly do it. What that would take from us and what it would take from our customers is another question that I don't have the answer to that. It could be very costly for our customers, which is not something we really want to pass on. Once we have AMI, that will provide us with data that can help us help our customers better, but it doesn't solve the true questions that we have. Again, they've answered this call time and again, and it doesn't seem fair to ask them to answer that call again. Back to the landscape efficiency standards that we were talking about, we have serious concerns, and so do other agencies, that assigning different water budgets for different customer types could be a violation of Prop 218, which says that our cost of providing service needs to be equivalent to the rates that we charge. And forcing some customers into higher tiers at a faster rate compared to other customers does not feel, just a quick sniff test does not feel consistent with Prop 218, and that's been a concern that several agencies have expressed. So this is our compliance. It's, like I said, it's aggressive starting in 2026 for sure, but there's certainly things we have to do before then. We're going to continue to monitor the regulations and see if they soften some of these. And we're expecting the final regulations in the summer. We have to submit our initial annual report on January 1st. And so we are actively working on that now. And again, that was just to give you an update on some more antics. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Haka. And this is just a receive and file?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Moving on to legislative matters, there are none. Boards and commission reports from city council commissioners and staff for the Library Board of Trustees report, which is a receive and file. The Library Board of Trustees report update for October 24th, 2023. Planning and Housing Commission report, a conditional use permit modification 2021-0004 for the revision to the site plan and architectural design for senior citizen housing consisting of 62 units on 2.14 acres in the R3 multiple family residential zone originally approved by conditional use permit 17-004 located at 159 North Buena Vista Avenue, APN 118-290-049. Applicant Milad Ojan, please forgive me if I said that wrong, on behalf of Pierre Syed. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public?
Mayor, yes, I have one speaker card for this item.
Evening again. As if it was possible to make such a crappy project, crappy half-baked, low-rent, half-done, poorly considered, not finished project, even worse, they did. This was the subject at the time of a lot of drama in the neighborhood. It doesn't really fit particularly well with the neighborhood. It's building a 3-story building immediately adjacent to townhomes and single-family residence. There was design compromises made at the time to kind of keep it as far away as possible and centralize it and drop it down on the lot just so it would be less impactful. But apparently that doesn't pencil, so they brought it back as kind of a fancier, spread out, more resort-ish kind of a thing where it's closer to the apartments, it's closer to all the back parts, has more amenities, which runs counter to the blather that they put out originally. Hey, we really need this project because this is designed as an affordable yet market rate senior housing about which there's a tremendous need. So they bring it back with now fully covered parking. There's going to be laundries in every unit, so that's all just running up the tab basically, because we all know that, parking's not free. And so, but it's got, more amenities, more this, more that, which I'm sure it'll be a nicer place to live, but it's also not going to be more affordable. It's not going to be more accessible. And it's also going to be more impactful to the neighborhoods. It's going to be closer, farther. Plus, it's still half-ass. You can't build the street improvements because they don't have the right of way. So there's going to be one driveway that's kicked out, and then it's going to kick out in front of the 2 houses that they wouldn't buy and incorporate into it. And then it's maybe going to kick back in. It's a mess. It's a hot mess that can't be finished. And to pitch it, they brought a fake architect. So, the guy's working out of his house and claiming to be an architect when he's not. So, it's just one hot mess after another. You take a bad project and make it even worse. And so here we are. So thank you.
Would my colleagues like to take no action or set the item for review?
Set the item for review.
Okay, I'd like to set the item for review as well. I watched a little bit of that planning commission. It was interesting. Okay, so I don't think we've ever passed to set the item for review, in all honesty, so I don't know exactly how we move forward from this. There's 3 people that said set the item for review. So does that come back to us, or does that go back to
No,
planning commission?
the hearing is before the council, so that's the decision.
Thank you. Okay, Moving on to Parks and Recreation Commission, receive and file the Parks and Rec Commission report update for October 8th, 2023. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public for the Library Board of Trustees and the Parks and Recreation Commission reports?
Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards.
Thank you. Moving on to our regional meetings, we have an update from Councilmember Jackie Casillas on the Western Riverside Council of Governments, WRCOG meeting of November 6th, 2023.
Thank you. So this, I think the most notable item on this agenda, and Councilmember Speak was zooming in, he even commented on how ridiculous this was. But anyway, we had a lengthy discussion about VMT mitigation program activities. And really, it was just a presentation from staff. So staff presented an update on a potential WRCOG initiative to help WRCOG member agencies mitigate VMT. So VMT stands for Vehicle Miles Traveled. It reflects the total vehicular travel associated with the project and is calculated based on the total number of trips multiplied by the distance these vehicles travel. So it's just a new measurement tool for greenhouse gases. Previously, a municipality was required only to evaluate the number of trips generated by a project. VMT reflects the regional transportation impacts generated by a project. So it's trying to dial down further on the impact of development. So VMT impact can be very difficult to reduce or eliminate in compliance with state requirements. Projects and programs which reduce VMT can also be costly for municipalities to implement by themselves. So WRCOG is evaluating a voluntary regional program with support from its member agencies. So WRCOG is wondering whether or not WRCOG has a role to play in assisting cities to address this state requirement. And the conversation was ridiculous. And so we were going round and round. Listen, guys, ultimately, the bottom line here is that cities need to approach this, and it may work for some, but it probably won't work for most to participate with WRCOG, especially because the funds that come in, if you were to participate with WRCOG's programs, wouldn't go to your city specifically. It would be applied regionally. So therefore, the incentive for the city is reduced to participate. Why would I have my city participate if the funds that would come towards addressing the VMT impact would then possibly go somewhere else? So it was a ridiculous conversation. We had an update about IREN, and then we had a quick update about the 2024 General Assembly meeting. So the General Assembly meeting, once a year, it's coming up on June 20th of 24. Plans are developing. The ad hoc committee vetted various speakers and proposed NFL Rams coach Sean McVay for the 2024 event. So that's it. Our next meeting is Monday, December 4th. Thank you.
Next, we have an update from Councilmember Speak on the Southern California Association of Governments, SCAG, Transportation Policy Committee of November 2nd, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to do both because they were kind of interrelated. The SCAG Transportation Policy Committee was really a presentation of the SoCal Connect plan. And SoCal Connect sounds lovely and sounds like it's going to be great, but it's not. It's just right now the federal government and the state government funds have to go through a regional government. So it has to go through SCAG before it's distributed. So in order to get that money and distribute it to RCTC and all the other COGs and cities and all that fun stuff, it has to go through this lens that they put together for the next 4 years, which is called SoCal Connect. One of the, probably the only good thing in the presentation was hearing some kind of cool statistics. One, that the regional GDP for SCAG, which is Ventura, LA, San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange, and Imperial County, is the 16th largest in the world. So I had to read that a couple times. And that California, actually this region, is the largest manufacturing area in the country. That's take away the Midwest, take away all the other places that people say, but more manufacturing is done in those 7 counties than there are done in anywhere else in the country, which most people don't realize that, and that's pretty interesting to me. So the plan elements are basically 5 pieces: the regional planning, which squeezes and says don't build a lot of houses and don't build roads, and if you do build roads, you have to have insane mitigation, vehicle miles traveled mitigation that we haven't figured out how to mitigate yet, and basically they've engineered so it's almost impossible. A project list, so things that can only be funded have to be on this list, and there are several in Riverside County. Those very excited to see. Some of them I think will carry us forward, and some of the things that I think folks will want to see, but also some of the things that folks don't want to see, like additional toll lanes and managed congestion pricing for going into downtown areas, and more charges for parking that don't get retained by the entity but go to a state government. And then the next thing that's going to come out in the next couple of years is vehicle miles traveled, so you get charged by the mile that you drive, not just your. And they don't say that they're going to get rid of the gas tax. It'll be the gas tax and vehicle miles traveled, so you'll get charged to everywhere you drive. Forecasted redevelopment patterns. So basically, the redevelopment pattern, and I wish I could show you the slide. It's basically everything becoming just more dense. They don't want urban sprawl, which neither do I, but at the same time, they want to make sure that that folks are living in very high density areas. Let's see, implementation strategies is basically just, if you adhere to the policy, you get money, and if you don't, you don't. A little more complicated than that, but there's, like 100 slides. But the good part is that there's a public, you can all comment on this thing. So if you go to SCAG's website, and that's www.scag.california.ca.gov, and you can go to that website. It'll be a place for you to click, and you can submit your comments and read the plan. And then, so that presentation was done both at the SCAG Policy Committee and at RCTC. And then we were given a little preview, a little more in-depth preview at SCAG headquarters in Riverside. But probably the only really good thing that came from that meeting was the confirmation that the executive committee has selected Aaron Hake as the new executive director of RCTC, and his first day will be, I think it's the 1st or 2nd of April of next year. So Ann will stick around for a little while to help do in the transition. And I met with Aaron the week before, and he's really excited about the job. I think he's going to do a great job. He understands, what our challenges are here in Corona, and knows I think some of the best ways to go forward. So I told him I was going to play on all of his heartstrings and emotions and in the hometown, as much hometown stuff as I can to get him to see our way of doing things. But I'm very excited. I think he'll do great, and looking forward to seeing how he does. Thanks.
Okay, so you did both SCAG and RCTC? Okay, thank you. So the next is an update from myself on the Western Riverside County Conservation Authority, RCA meeting of November 6th. Just 2 things to report out on. We did a surplus land swap with Elsinore Valley Water District. It's kind of an interagency transfer that doesn't require an SLA process. And then this was kind of interesting. Caltrans is doing the Arroyo Toad Cooperative Agreement, and it's in order to mitigate conservation with some projects along the 74 and 79 in Western Riverside County. So they're going to have to buy 12.5 acres in order to conserve land because of some of the things that they're doing along the 74 and 79. Ms. Edwards, are there any speaker cards from the public for the regional updates?
Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards.
Ms. Raymond, do you have any comments?
Just that the council met in closed session, the items listed on the agenda, and there was no reportable action.
Thank you. Mr. Ellis, do you have any comments?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Do my colleagues have any comments?
Yes, a couple things. One, I want to say a huge thank you to our Public Works Department, especially our traffic engineering team, Aaron Cox and Rosie Areno. I want to say thank you. They're always looking for ways to make things better. I was very pleased to find, driving down Cajalco over the last couple weeks, to find an additional right-hand turn lane onto Temescal Canyon. And we had been talking about it for a little while, and I know I was trying to get one to go the other direction, but this is even better. So this is a great opportunity. And I happened to just drive around a little bit just because I wanted to see what other fun stuff that staff had been pushing forward, and found some great things that that the county has done as well. So I want to say thank you to the traffic team for always, looking out. I wrote an email to Mark Lancaster, who's the head of RCTD, and they made a couple of really common sense, changes as well. They re-striped and made a little bit wider and a better turn lane from El Cerrito going on to the Bedford. I wish they would require that corner and actually make a dedicated right turn lane, but a guy can hope. But they also put channelizers on Temescal Canyon Road at El Cerrito, just because folks, especially when it's really busy to get down to Dos Lagos, people kind of cheat and find a way and then kind of cut back in. This actually puts some channelizers to slow that down. Mr. Lancaster is a smart man, very good engineer, and I'm very happy to see that he's working with us on several other things. We just wanted to say thank you. And then last but not least, it's Tony's last meeting.
Yeah, thank God. Yeah.
So I just wanted to say thank you. And I know I'm surprised you're still here. I thought for some reason we were going to kick you out, but you've done a great job, and thanks for all your work this year.
Thank you. Councilmember Steiner?
Yeah, good job, Tony.
Thanks.
My condolences to the family of Shailene Cortez. I also had a friend pass away a couple weeks ago, Stu Glickman. He was a District 4 resident and father to Deborah Miller, who's the wife of former Corona Mayor Jeff Miller. Stu was a Marine Corps veteran. He worked for the Riverside County DA's office before being appointed as a Riverside County Superior Court Commissioner in 1988, an assignment that he held for 31 years. He was married to Annie Glickman for 64 years. To the Glickman and Miller families and to all those who loved him, we offer our sincere condolences. And Mayor Daddario, I think the family would be really grateful if you would consider adjourning tonight's meeting in memory of Stuart Evan Glickman.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilmember Casillas? Vice Mayor?
I too want to give recognition to Shailene, and I know between Wes and I, we can both testify that she was very key to Corona's history, and she was a powerhouse. And if I wasn't asking her questions, I know Wes was. So also, thank you, Tony, for being our mayor this year. I think you've lost about 65 pounds since you started. So amazing.
It's true.
I guess the job gets to you. I had the opportunity last week to go to the Corona Volunteer Recognition Awards, and what it is all these people that that volunteer for the city, whether it be the library, Parks and Recs, those annoying sign picking up people. All those people got recognized for hundreds and thousands of hours that have been donated to the city, and they're just the coolest people. Today I had the opportunity to go to the Thanksgiving community dinner recognizing the senior center. I don't know what they call this thing, but what it is you take a bunch of old people and stick them in a room, and Michelle, but she's not old. And but it was packed. There was like 300 people there, Donna Karen, New York. And these people loved it. It was a good meal. The Flower Co. people sponsored it. Some other people sponsored it. But it was very cool to see the city taking care of the seniors. Very admirable. And with that, that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just a couple announcements for me. On the 6th, I got to participate in the Discovery Day with a bunch of third graders from a local school. And it started off really strong. A lot of great questions. And then one of the kids asked a question about what does the city of Corona do in case of a tsunami. And I said, well, you know, we're pretty far from the ocean, so I don't know if we have a tsunami plan. And that one question opened up a flood of weather-related questions, no pun intended. And then after about the 10th one, I stopped and I said, why are we asking all of these questions about you know, rain and flood events? And the teacher said, well, we just finished government and we're moving on to weather events. And I'm like, we're not by an ocean, so I'm not worried about flooding and a tsunami. But it was great. I love to see their minds working and just the questions that they asked. On the 7th, I was able to attend the U.S. Mayor's Conference. It was hosted by the city of Riverside at the Cheech. And it was really interesting to listen to a group of mayors talking about some of the challenges that they have in their city. And I got to sit next to Aquanetta Warren, who is the mayor of the city of Fontana. She's been there for a little bit. She's absolutely just a great person. And I would not want to be a street vendor in the city of, a food street vendor in the city of Fontana, because they are not taking any of that very kindly. On the 10th, I got to attend a very special ribbon cutting for a little girl here in the city of Corona who finally, after several years, got her playhouse built and delivered. So that was a lot of fun. And then on the 11th, last Saturday, I was asked by the veterans at the Joe Dominguez Post to make dinner for their Veterans Day dinner celebration, which was a lot of fun. Nothing like cooking for 125 to lighten your day. And lastly, I want to give a shout out to our community services team. You know, we get emails that come out, and my wife had said that she got an email about a kids' night out event, and she wanted me to give her all of the information, and I said, well, I don't know anything about that. So I had to start looking into it, and really and truly, they call it kids' night out, but it's really parents' night out. And you know, our community services, you know, department is doing a lot, and they are trying to come up with a lot of great options for parents in the city of Corona. So I want to highlight a few. Their kids' night out event, the one that my wife was asking me about, was on the 4th of November, but essentially from 6 to 10 for a very, very reasonable fee. You can drop your kid off at the Circle City Center from 6 to 10. They will be entertained. They will have activities. They've got probably snacks. They've got lots of stuff going on for them. And mom and dad can go out and actually have a great night together. And that sounds like a whole lot of fun. On the 17th, they're gonna have a family game night, which is free. It's all ages at the Circle City Center. And if you're looking for something to do, that's definitely a great opportunity. And then the 29th of November, they're going to be crafting with the CCC staff for a $5 fee, ages 6 to 12. It's going to be a great time. But coming up in the month of December, again, on the 1st, they're going to have another Kids Night Out event. And then, you know, for my colleagues up here, I wanted to suggest maybe a little team building event. On the 5th, they've got a cookie decorating contest, which could be dangerous. But then on the 13th, they've got a gingerbread house competition. And I don't know, I kind of think that maybe we should settle once and for all who's the most creative on the council. And I'm going to challenge you guys to either cookie decorating or gingerbread house competition. So
We'll sign up for the day after for the cookie eating contest and the gingerbread
serious
eating.
question, can we eat the product afterwards?
I'm assuming that you could eat the gingerbread house and the cookies, but
There's going to be power tools involved, right?
it's sponsored by DeWalt.
I'm game.
So, but you know, more importantly, I just wanted to give a shout out to them. You can find out all of this information in the Corona Connections magazine right here. Or if you're on Facebook, follow Corona Recreation, also on Instagram. And if you wanted to find out more on how you could sign up, please go to coronaca.gov/registration and search Fall Happenings. Some great programming coming from the City of Corona staff, and I really appreciate it. So thank you very much. So in that, I will adjourn this meeting in honor of Stu Glickman, and we'll see you on December 6th. Thank you.